what you need to know.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, 3 o'clock chat here. What's up, my friends? The weekend is set coming up in the Pac-12. Oregon will travel to Tempe to meet the ASU Sun Devils. Kickoff scheduled for 1 on Fox. The Ducks are favored by 24. The OSU Beavers are going to host Washington, 4:30 on ABC. OSU is favored by 1. We have a new batch of college football playoff rankings that will drop tomorrow. Monday Night Football, Broncos at Bills, 5:15 on ABC and ESPN. Buffalo is favored by 7. Your Portland Trailblazers back in action tomorrow night. Coming off the loss last night in L.A. to the Lakers. They're in Utah to meet the Jazz. Tip at 6. I will have game day starting at 3. You've got the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad coming at you next. We'll talk football with Frank Schwab at 3:20. We'll head to Houston and get the latest on C.J. Stroud with Adam Clanton at 5:20. And we got a pair of Laney Wilson tickets to give away. You just have to listen to us for your chance to win.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad, presented by Lazy Boy. What is your strategy for comfort?
3-man rush, downfield, it's caught, spinning away, come on, yes, touchdown Oregon, touchdown Ducks.
Hand it to Damian, he's headed the backfield, but he cuts to the right and takes it in. Touchdown Beavers, Damian Martinez's 4th rushing touchdown of the day.
I'm excited, man, them to be in a tight football game versus a playoff football team and come up with a win.
Shotgun to Wilson, 5-step drop, dumps it short, and it's picked off Spillane at the 15. Robert Spillane with his 3rd pick of the year, and the defense does it again.
Purdy under center, a 5-step drop. Now going to pump and throw down the sideline. Kittle, he's got it and he's gone. Touchdown, San Francisco. Debo 10.
So we appreciate that, Shacker. And good afternoon, my friends. Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad with you today from 3 until 6. And we got a lot of different things to talk about today. Frank Schwab, Yahoo Sports, will break down the NFL coming up in 20 minutes. And there were a ton of great games yesterday that came right down to the wire. So we'll talk with Frank in 20 minutes. And at 5:20, my radio brother from another mother, he is my radio lover, Adam Clanton down in Houston, Sports Talk 790, is going to come on. We got to dig in and get the latest on what's going on with C.J. Stroud.
Wow.
The impressive rookie who, once again, lighting it up yesterday on the road against Joe Burrow, bringing his team from behind to get another win.
I can't remember the last rookie to come in and make that kind of impression. I mean, that doesn't happen,
Dude,
does it?
He's got guts. He's got big balls, and I love his understanding of what's going down there on the field. I've been watching these in-depth quarterback guru videos on C.J. Stroud. It's not just the delivery of the football, but the high-level stuff that he's doing at the line of scrimmage, being able to diagnose and know what the defense is going to do and then get his team in the right play, and then more importantly, understand where his hot routes are going to be, understanding the game, and delivering the football. It's not just delivering the football, Godfather, but when you can layer your throws over the top of a linebacker in front of the safety with coverage, and he's doing this on a regular basis now, I just walk away blown away because I didn't realize he was going to be that good. And once again, another super stud quarterback who was misdiagnosed through the draft process. He's awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's not like people didn't think he was going to be good. I mean, he fell from 1 to 2, basically. But he's really good. I think his ability to process, we talk about that all the time, but that's so important. This is one smart kid. You can tell he's really got it together, and he must have an enormous football IQ.
No question. But you wouldn't know that if you look at the aptitude test that they drop on these guys.
Yeah, I think it's time to toss that in the garbage can.
But the cost, here's the misdiagnosis. You're Carolina. You see your guy, and you trade a bunch of assets to move up to get Bryce Young, and you pass on C.J. Stroud. Right now, that appears to be a gigantic mistake. Now, It's early, and I think Bryce Young is a pretty heady youngster, and he's in a much more difficult spot right now with the Panthers, but they got C.J. Stroud just because they were sitting there and they selected him. Yeah. And who knows what they would have done if they would have had the number 1 pick. Maybe they take Bryce Young. But they wound up with C.J. Stroud, and they look great.
Sometimes in these drafts, it's better to have the number 2 pick and have the other team make your decision for you. Yes. That's really what happened. Who knows? If they'd had the number 1 pick, would they have taken him? I don't know. I'm sure they wouldn't say that now, but it's sometimes better to do that. What if Portland hadn't had the number 1 pick and somebody else would have taken Greg Oden? Oh, no. Now we have to take Kevin Durant. Tough luck.
That would have worked out okay.
Yeah, too bad.
All right. I spent another Saturday. It was spectacular. Back-to-back Saturdays of literally doing nothing but watch football. Mm-hmm. From the moment I get up and have a cup of coffee in my hand until I'm having a hard time keeping my eyes open because it's so late at night with the Oregon-USC game. I watch football all day long, and it was fabulous. I love it. And I love this job because it gives me an excuse to sit back and do nothing but watch football, and a lot of guys would love to have that. So the Oregon-USC game, Bo Nix was sensational. Over 400 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. He was Johnny on the spot. He was sharp. He was accurate. He was delivering the football where he needed to. And the Ducks, early on in that game, they just big played USC to death. I thought Bo Nix set a good tone early with that offense. And you actually made a pretty good point with USC that they actually came out with a decent plan of trying to slow the game down just a little bit.
That's what I thought, Chad. They were taking more time in between plays than they usually do. They're usually a tempo team that wants to get the next play going. Nah, they weren't quite doing that this time. I think they were trying to protect their defense, which is what they should have been doing all year, really. Protect your defense, keep them off the field. Because, you can run into trouble with those quick strike teams that, make their defense play out on the field all the time. And I think they were smart. But when the other team comes out and goes deep on you, just like back-to-back possessions, then you're behind the 8 ball all day, which they were.
Well, the weird part about the game, the Ducks' offense was pretty much what I thought it would be, basically 600 yards of total offense. It just went in reverse order. They only ran the ball for 140, but it was Bo Nix who was effective. I thought the Ducks would run the football more, but clearly they were able to scheme up and put Nix in a position to make plays to his wide receivers. And my favorite play of the game was the Tez Johnson spin out of a tackle and accelerate like a mad dog and head down the sideline, just showing that speed. He and Franklin are studs. And those type of playmakers on the outside with that type of speed I thought was incredible. And the game also played out the way we talked about. All the public and the public money just piling on the Ducks and the whole narrative about USC's a disaster. Their defense is hot garbage. They fired Alex Grinch. The Ducks are going to dominate and have their way with USC. And I said, you know what? Based on the conversation and the public money, I like the Ducks to win, but USC to cover the point spread. That's what happened. But the weird part about the game, I never once thought that Oregon was not in complete control of that football game, no matter what USC did. Even in the fourth quarter when they made a bit of a push, I never felt like Oregon wasn't in full control of what they were trying to do out there.
Right. I felt the same way, Chad. Yeah. But I don't think it was the Ducks' best performance of the year. But you can't bring that A game week after week after week. You're going to have some letdown, and you got to respect USC on offense for sure. I mean, they have a great quarterback. They have pretty good receivers. They have a good running back. They're going to score points, and you have to give them credit for that. But the Ducks did what they had to do to get through that game. That's all they had to do.
Yeah, and I agree. What I hate about college football with only 4 teams getting into the playoff is it's not just about winning games.
Yeah.
It's about a beauty contest, dominating competition and making sure that you showcase what you do. Fortunately for Oregon, people just wake up and see the score and see Bo Nix put up over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, thinks, hey, they handle business.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a beauty contest, and unfortunately there's a lot of teams in competition. So I thought Oregon was solid, not extraordinary, but they controlled the game from start until finish, and Bo Nix was terrific.
Yeah, he was.
I credit teams for actually winning games.
Yeah.
There's something about that, right? I credit Washington for being able to win games and not play their best football.
They've been doing a lot of that lately.
Yeah, it tells me something about their team. They didn't play a great game against Utah, but they sure buttoned it up defensively in the second half.
They played a very good second half, I thought. Yeah.
But here's why it's important to not only beat teams but destroy them. Here is the doomsday scenario that I think all Duck fans need to be concerned about when it comes to being one of those teams that slides into the playoff, because I think a lot of Oregon fans think, hey, if we win out and we beat Washington and win that rematch in the Pac-12 title game, we're in the playoff.
Not so fast, my friend.
All right, here's the scenario that you've got to consider. And if you have thoughts on this, reach out to us. Dwight's, you'll find him at Dwight James. You'll find me on Twitter at Chad and Rip City. Joel Klatt laid this out, and this is what I've been asking and trying to ask everyone, because this is what matters to me. What's going to happen if doomsday hits and we've got a bunch of one-loss conference champs in play? All right, here's the scenario. You've got a 13-0 Big Ten champ, Michigan. Technically, it could be Ohio State, but I think Michigan's going to kick their ass. 13-0 FSU. So Florida State unbeaten, they're in. 13-0 Big Ten champ, they're in. And then you've got two spots for the following teams. A 12-1 Oregon, who's a conference champ. 12-1 Texas, who is a conference champ. 12-1 Bama, who is a conference champ. Georgia with one loss, non-conference champ. And Washington, one loss, non-conference champ. That's a lot of good teams.
Yes, for two spots.
For two spots. And that's a very possible scenario that could play out if those things take place. Joel Klatt thinks of that group, Oregon, Texas, Bama, Georgia, and Washington, that Texas would get in as a one-loss conference champ because they would have a win at Bama, who is a one-loss SEC champ.
Right.
He's not the only one that thinks that. If you listen to the committee and the breakdown from last week after the college football playoff rankings came out, Herb Street and company also believe the same thing, because if you look at the rankings today, Texas is still slotted ahead of Alabama. He obviously doesn't think that Georgia or Washington would get in under that scenario because they would not have a conference champ. So that really leaves you with two teams. Oregon, one loss, Pac-12 champ, against Bama, one loss, SEC champ. And you got to ask yourself, honestly, who is the committee going to select?
Oh, Chad. They would take a one-loss Pac-12 champ over a one-loss SEC champ, wouldn't they?
Well, you've been touting Oregon pretty hard over the last few weeks. You even told me last week something crazy, like you would have them ranked ahead of Washington today, even though they lost at Washington.
I would, yeah, because they've looked
crazy.
Better. Yeah, they're a better team right now.
But who do you think's the better team between Oregon and Alabama right now?
Well, the rate that Alabama is improving, which we talked about from the start of the season that they would get better, it's probably Alabama, just because it's Alabama. And if I'm picking teams, who has the best brand? Hey, the Ducks have worked hard. They got a great brand. They're not Alabama.
I know, but today, I'm just asking you. Don't think like the committee. I'm asking you today, based on what you've seen, who do you think is the best team today, Oregon or Alabama?
I think the Ducks are probably better. Yeah. If Alabama beats Georgia, which is this scenario, that's a scenario we're talking about, then you'd have to say, well, Alabama's probably better if they beat Georgia.
What do you think the committee will do under those circumstances?
They'd take Alabama. And Oregon will be sitting at home.
All right. That's the scenario. That's something we're going to get into
Chad,
throughout the show.
Agree? You agree, right?
Under that circumstance where you have a 13-0 Big Ten champ, FSU at 13-0, those two teams are in. And you've got a 12-1 Oregon conference champ, 12-1 Texas conference champ, 12-1 Bama conference champ, and a one-loss Georgia and Washington without conference champs. Yeah, as I've said all along, you can't trust the committee. There's no way they're leaving Bama out after beating Georgia in the SEC title game.
Right.
Because if they don't put Bama in, they're not going to have an SEC team in the 14 playoff.
That's not going to happen. That's why you got to hope that Georgia beats Bama.
Yeah. And you need to hope that Washington remains unbeaten going into the Pac-12 title game.
Try to tell people that on Saturday. You want the Huskies to be strong.
You've got to dominate your competition, and you need the best possible resume. What's working against Oregon right now is two things. One, their strength of schedule. Two, the fact that they're in the Pac-12, which even though we know here on the West Coast is the best we've seen the Pac-12, on a national level, this is the product of being a part of a crap conference for a long period of time. No one takes it seriously.
Yep.
All right, when we come back, we'll dive into the NFL. Who's the best team in the AFC? How do you make sense of this C.J. Stroud madness? He's tearing up the league. And can the Broncos, coming off a win over the Chiefs, back-to-back wins off the bye, make some noise in Buffalo tonight? We'll talk with Frank Schwab. iHeartRadio celebrates National Hispanic Heritage Month with specially curated playlists spotlighting Hispanic artists for their achievements and contributions to the Hispanic community and culture through their incredible music. Open your free iHeartRadio app and search Hispanic Heritage Month to listen now. All right, Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad as we get ready to talk some NFL. Coming off a great weekend of games, and joining us right now is a gentleman who covers the NFL for Yahoo Sports. He's on Twitter at Yahoo Schwab. It's Frank Schwab back on the Rip City Drive. Frank, and we want to start with the rookie sensation, C.J. Stroud. What are your thoughts on his play, especially coming off this latest come-from-behind victory in Cincinnati?
I mean, he's been fantastic. To me, he's the story of the NFL this year. For him to kind of revive that Texans franchise, it's not like he stepped into a good situation. We might try to retrofit that and say, the Texans aren't that bad. No, the Texans were terrible. They were expected to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, and he has completely just lifted everybody on his shoulders. I think already, I mean, if this keeps up at this pace or even close to it, it'll be the greatest rookie season we've ever seen from a quarterback. And I think right now, if after 10 weeks, if you're stuck on a quarterback needs to be MVP, it can't be a receiver, it can't be a running man, it needs to be a quarterback, I think the vote is C.J. Stroud for MVP. I mean, crazy as that sounds, who else has been better, really? I mean, I think all the elite options, Mahomes, Allen, Hurts to a degree, have been a little disappointing. And here's a guy who is second in the NFL in passing yards. He has a 15-2 touchdown interception ratio. He's carrying a team that wasn't very good. They're over 500 now in the playoff mix. And, last 2 weeks he's had 2 final-minute drives to win games. What more do you want? Like, this guy is he's so far ahead of the curve. It's shocking to everybody, and I think it's awesome. I think it's, in this kind of weird NFL season that hasn't honestly been that great with scoring down and a lot of bad games, a lot of bad quarterback play, I think he stands out as kind of the best story we've seen so far.
It almost, Frank, dwarfs the story of his rookie head coach, DeMeco Ryans. It appears he's doing a pretty darn good job for a first-year guy.
He really is. I mean, and I liked him. Look, the Texans got really lucky with him. I mean, the Texans 10 months ago or whatever, 11 months ago, had no business hiring the best candidate on the market. And, they're a dysfunctional franchise, bad roster, losing ways. And DeMeco Ryans happens to say, you know what, I played in Houston, I have great memories of it. I want to go back. I mean, sometimes you just get lucky that way. If DeMeco Ryans had been drafted by the New York Giants, I don't think he would have taken the Texans job. But he had great feelings about that place and called it home and all that kind of stuff. Felt like a homecoming to him. So that's where he went, and I think that was just a grand slam hire for the Texans. I was buying stock in DeMeco Ryans as a head coach. I think he's a really, really smart football mind, really gets through to his players, has the veteran experience of being an NFL player for, I believe, 10 years, very good player too. And along with Stroud, you're right. And the Stroud story is kind of taken over everything because we've never seen this out of a rookie quarterback before, really.
Yeah.
But DeMeco Ryans deserves his credit too. I mean, he's fantastic, and for the Houston Texans to go from basically being dead in the water to grand slam hired head coach, grand slam draft pick, a quarterback. I mean, that's how you change around a franchise overnight.
Frank, I also wanted to ask you about the Aaron Rodgers situation. People are saying he's targeting mid-December. Kind of wondering your thoughts. By mid-December, will there be any use or any point in him coming back to the Jets?
I think it's nonsense, to be honest. I mean, look, maybe a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers just proves me wrong, and it comes back after 3 months after blowing out his Achilles. But we've never seen anything like that before. Like that just would be so unprecedented. There's really not even a precedent for it at all. I guess Cam Akers coming back, but that was like 5 months. So I find it incredibly hard to believe. And the only way I see that even being viable is if Aaron Rodgers has decided, whatever happens, this is my last NFL season. I don't care. I'm not coming back next year. I don't want to play anymore. I'm 40. I'm going to retire. And who cares if I blow it again? Like, what difference does it make? Okay, well, then I guess that makes a little bit of sense.
Sure.
But otherwise, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, why? Why don't the Jets want that? If the Jets believe, hey, Aaron's going to be healthy next year, we could run this back, we still have a good roster, we're still adding to it, why would we risk him setting himself back and costing himself another season? Why would they want to do this? Unless it's just Aaron Rodgers saying, I don't care, I'm not putting him back for you, I'm sorry. Then who cares? Whatever. I don't see it. I don't see it happening. I don't put any stock in it. I don't think it would be smart for the Jets. I don't know that he could be effective. Maybe better than Zach Wilson, but any better than that? I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I just find the whole story to be kind of a farce. Maybe I'll be wrong, and this is going to be one of the great stories we've ever seen in sports and recovering from injuries, but I'm really not buying it at this point.
We're talking with Frank Schwab, Yahoo Sports, taking a look at the NFL. Well, Frank, when are the Chargers going to wise up and make a change at head coach?
I mean, they pretty much have to. I mean, I don't know that it'll happen during the season, but I mean, when you look at this, the thing that just is a blaring alarm right now is Brandon Staley was brought in as a defensive mind. I mean, he was the Rams defensive coordinator in an era when everybody's hiring offensive coaches. The Chargers said, we're going to hire this guy because he's a really smart defensive guy, he can manage the whole game, all that kind of stuff. Their defense is one of 2 or 3 worst in football right now. So what's the point? What's Brandon Staley's point in being on the sideline? They have to feel like they're wasting another year with this roster, especially with Justin Herbert. They gave up. They scored 38 points at home yesterday and lost. You can't do that. It's irresponsible. They're again underachieving greatly. Even the one time that the Chargers have done anything with Brandon Staley, they went to the playoffs and then blew a 27-point lead against the Jaguars. I mean, it's just there. I don't know. Just based on the Chargers' history and their cheap ownership and all that kind of stuff, they're probably not doing this during the season. But it would shock me unless things turn around. And hey, there's 2 months ago in the season about things turn around. Maybe Brandon Staley keeps his job. But as of right now, I find it really, really hard to believe that Staley's back next season.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about the impact that Antonio Pierce has been having with Las Vegas, and how do you see that working out? Say, you think he's going to get a shot next year? Do you think it's going to last this year? How do you see that impact?
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of fascinating because of what happened a couple of years ago. John Gruden gets unceremoniously fired. They have to turn to Rich Bisaccia, their special teams coordinator, and the players respond to Bisaccia and they go to the playoffs. And Mark Davis decided, you know what? I need a bright, shiny toy. I'm going to hire Josh McDaniels, and I'm going to make this Patriots West. And it turned out to be an absolute disaster. So you wonder now, I mean, this wasn't long ago, the same owner. Does that same owner look and say, you know what? These players are really responding to Antonio Pierce. Regardless of what their record is by the end of the season, I think we can all see the Raiders are a different team. They are a much different team. They like playing for Antonio Pierce, NFL veteran, a guy who – a tough upbringing, and he really, really relates to his players. I think his physical toughness really rubs off on this team. You can just tell there's a difference. There is an absolute difference in the Las Vegas Raiders the last couple of weeks, and not just because they got rid of one of the worst coaches of all time. It's because they really like playing for Antonio Pierce. And so I wonder what Mark Davis thinks at the end of the year. He's going to be so, it's just his history to just go in and get the splashiest hire he can, whether it's Gruden or McDaniels or whatever. Can he just be content and saying, you know what, Antonio Pierce is pretty darn good. These players like playing for him. I'm not going to make a run at Jim Harbaugh. I'm going to just have this guy who clearly is doing something right on the NFL level. He might not be some X's and O's genius, but neither is Mike Tomlin, and he's probably going to Hall of Fame someday. John Harbaugh might not be, he never was an offensive or defensive coordinator. He's going to Hall of Fame too. You can win with a CEO coach, and I think that Antonio Pierce is really showing that he has the chops to be a good NFL head coach because he manages his roster well, manages the game well. I'm really excited for him to see what happens the rest of the season, and I hope Mark Davis, at the end of the day, does the right thing instead of just trying to get the headlines like he usually does.
Hey, Frank, you're based in Denver, so you know this. The Broncos are feeling good about themselves right now. Back-to-back wins. They're coming off a win over Kansas City and the bye week. Do you think you see enough things trending in the right direction to where they can go in and win a game of substance in Buffalo tonight, Monday Night Football?
I actually kind of do. As crazy as that sounds, and look, I realize that I could look up and it was third quarter and it's 31-7 Buffalo. I mean, they have that gear. We know that. Maybe the Broncos haven't fixed everything. But in this NFL where everything changes from week to week, these teams are playing 18 one-game seasons right now. I mean, it's just crazy. Nothing lasts. The 49ers look like the best team in football, and they lose 3 in a row. The Ravens look like the best team in football. They lose at home to the Browns. Everything changes. So whatever happened to the Broncos in September, I'm not necessarily thinking that that's who they are the rest of the season. I think the last 3 games they've been much more competitive. Obviously shut down the Chiefs twice, won one of those games. I think they're playing a lot better. And I just think this Bills team is really underwhelming. any team that gets outplayed by the Giants and Patriots in back-to-back weeks is really not that great. So I think the Broncos are going to be in this game. Let's put it that way. I don't know that necessarily they're going to get over the hump and win this game, but I think we're going to look at the fourth quarter. There's going to be 4:30 left on the clock, and we're going to say, oh, my goodness, the Broncos have the ball down 2 points with a chance to win the game right here. Now, whether they can do it, I don't know, but I think we're going to get a competitive game on Monday Night Football. I think Sean Payton's figured some things out. I think that he's a good coach that needed probably a little bit of time. It was terrible early in here, but he's getting better. And I do think the Broncos are competitive tonight against a Bills team that just really is just underwhelming this season.
Who do you think the best team is in the AFC?
It's a great question. I guess the default is the Chiefs. It's weird. This Chiefs season has been so weird in that they finally get a good defense, right? Like, this is what we've all been waiting for. What if this offense gets paired with a top 5 defense? And they really probably are top 10, top 5, whatever you want. They're a good defense, the best defense of Patrick Mahomes' career. I don't think there's any question about that. And now the offense isn't that good. Like, it's fine, but we keep like, oh, this offense is going to take off. This offense is going to. We're 10 weeks into the season. We kind of are who we are at this point, right? Like, there's no personnel addition they're going to make. There's no great schematic change they're going to make. They're kind of who they are, and the offense has been kind of underwhelming. I think they're good, but I don't think this is great vintage Patrick Mahomes Chiefs team. I think they're probably the best team in the AFC by default. I think the team that really is coming out strong is the Browns. I mean, yesterday's win, you kind of got to look at them differently. They're 5-1 when Deshaun Watson started games. And one of those games kind of shouldn't count to his record because he was hurt early. But still, 4-1, whatever. They have a really good defense. Whatever we think about Watson and where he ranks among NFL quarterbacks and all that, he's obviously their best option. And they played really well in the second half. So I think the answer is the Chiefs right now, but the answer down the road might be the Browns. It's crazy as that sounds in this crazy season. The Browns are kind of sticking out as maybe the team that's really going to get hot in the second half.
Okay, Bill Belichick, what do you think? How much time's he got left, or does he have a lot of time left?
I don't know. I was talking about that earlier today, and kind of my thing about it is if Robert Kraft in January 15th or whenever their season's done, he wants to talk about this, if he says, you know what, Bill Belichick is the greatest coach of all time, I'm not firing Bill Belichick, I think that's perfectly reasonable. Like, they have their issues for sure, but I think we get too caught up in, well, you lost a bunch of games, you have to fire your head coach. Well, I can guarantee you, absolutely, positively, 100% guarantee you, the Patriots' next head coach will not be better than Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick, to me, is the greatest coach of all time. Like, so do you just fire him just to fire him? I understand if they would. I understand if they would be, everything's going in the wrong direction. Bill's getting older. His personnel decisions have been terrible. We need a new voice. We need it. Okay, that's fine too. I understand it. But the one thing I don't see happening is Bill getting fired during the season, unless it's a mutual thing. Unless it's, hey, this isn't working. We got to step. We got to. I'm going to step down. You got whatever we need to do. Because in most cases, I don't mind a head coach getting fired during a season if a team thinks it's worth it. We see the Raiders. Look at the Raiders. Raiders turn around. Panthers turn around last year. It could give your team a little bit of a spark. But I think there's a few coaches, very few coaches, who don't deserve that as an end. And Bill Belichick's got to be one of them. I mean, 17 division titles in 19 years, 6 Super Bowl wins. He is as synonymous with the Patriots as any head coach has been with a team other than like Lombardi and the Packers. He deserves whatever ending he wants as far as not getting fired during the season. So I don't think that's going to happen, but who knows? I mean, there's a lot of rumblings, so we'll see. I think a real interesting question is what happens next with Bill Belichick. Let's say the Patriots fire him after the season. And we can kind of all see that's obviously a probable outcome at this point, just based on what we've read and seen and all that kind of stuff. Does Bill want to coach more? Does some team, like, you look around and the Carolina Panthers, they'd be better off with Bill Belichick as their head coach. He's a better coach than Frank Reich. Like, there's no question about that. But Bill Belichick's going to be 73 years old, I believe. Does he want to start again? Does a team want to start fresh with him? I mean, give him personnel control, all this kind of stuff. So I think part A of that is it's going to be really interesting to see what the Patriots do. The more fascinating thing to me is what happens next with Bill Belichick if he doesn't want to retire. Who does he go to? And what market is there for him? It's just a very, very interesting story that's going to play out here over the next few weeks.
All right, make sure you check him out. He's with Yahoo Sports. It's Frank Schwab. He's on Twitter at Yahoo Schwab. We love talking ball with him. Frank, really appreciate the time. Enjoy the week and enjoy the games, my friend.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a fun weekend of NFL football. C.J. Stroud, awesome. And you know what's funny? We bashed on the Browns-Ravens game all week.
Yeah, we did.
It turned out to be one of the best games of the weekend.
Yeah, you weren't too bad. I bashed all over it. I told you I'm not watching it, and I must confess I did not watch it. And I know I missed a pretty good game. I saw some highlights, but I didn't watch it.
All I can say about the Browns is that their roster is littered with talent on both sides. So keep in mind, 5-1 with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. If he can continue to make strides in his game, they will factor into the AFC race because of that talent on the roster.
Yeah.
And their defense is legit.
Yeah.
They're good.
No
and the
question.
Ravens are good, too. There's no shame in losing a close game to the Browns. You just move on and get ready for the next one. I think both the Browns and the Ravens are major factors in the AFC race. Now, I got this message. Miranda has chimed in, so let's check out and see what she has to say. Dear Skunk Vomit, good afternoon, Mr. Doing. Did anyone else think that Parker and Wilson sounded just a tad bit cranky in their call of the OSU-Stanford game on Saturday? For example, on the very last play of the 62-17 beatdown, Parker and Wilson complained that the decision to take a knee caused OSU total yards for the game to dip under 600. That type of grumbling sounds very Chad-like. Did you perhaps give them pointers on how to be a whiny biatch? Warmest regards, Miranda. All right, and we've got Michael Shacker, who is always with Jim Wilson and Mike Parker. Shacker, can you confirm with the thumbs up that they were cranky at the end of the game? He gives the absolute nod, didn't even hesitate.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. See, this is Beaver fan, though. Parker and Wilson, I guess, fall into the same category where this is like one of the best Beaver teams I've ever seen, and it's not good enough. Oh, how are we going to get our 600 total yards?
Yeah, but Chad, that's not what they're complaining about this weekend. You know what they're complaining about. And it is a big deal to the point where Pat McAfee actually answered them on the air today.
They, Corvallis, getting punked by the Jonas Brothers and James Madison.
James Madison. Yeah, they decided to go to see Jimmy Madison.
But from my understanding, Fowler and Herbstreit are going to be on the call for the game?
They are, I think.
Okay.
That's what Herbstreit said.
Who is the person responsible for going up to Herbstreit to deliver the Beaver Bucks? Because I want a camera on that transaction when Kirk Herbstreit gets his Beaver Bucks.
Do you think Herbstreit and Fowler would get extra Beaver Bucks more than what you and I got?
No.
Or you don't think so? I think they had to get $10 extra. Beaver Bucks.
Well, I know that Brenda's a good cook. Maybe she can take food to Fowler and Herbstreit.
Good idea. She'd probably get in trouble for that, though.
She might. With Shacker in the controls, you know she's going to get in trouble because he doesn't follow rules ever.
That's for sure.
Shacker is the guy to give a middle finger to authority at all times. Our producer.
Man. It's a good thing he doesn't work in the Big Ten. They would sanction him right away. He'd be suspended.
Seriously, though, James Madison.
I know. Well, his friends call him Jim.
What does the
Jim
dean of
Madison.
Portland Sports, Kerry Eggers, think about that? Did you ask him?
No, I don't think he's real pleased. I feel for him a little bit. They've never been to Corvallis.
No, they have.
Well, they're saying they never have.
No, I looked it up. They went in 2010 for the Oregon State game.
Really?
The year that the Ducks were undefeated.
Oh.
And finished off their unbeaten season with a 37-20 win over Oregon State. They went that year. That's the only time.
Where did you check that?
I looked it up online.
Where do you look that up, though?
Just Google search college game day locations, and it will give you a full list of every place they've been.
No kidding.
No joke.
It's so funny because they keep saying it's never been to Corvallis.
It has been. I looked it up. I'll show you during the break.
Huh.
All right, when we come back.
By the way, I don't care that much, but go ahead.
No, I think you kind of do care a little bit because it's kind of funny.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You were kind of hoping that they hadn't been at all and they were getting punked for James Madison.
I wasn't hoping that. That's what they're whining about.
All right, when we come back, we got to give props to an NFL team and also Aaron Rodgers, mid-December comeback. Are you kidding me? Does that make sense?
No.
iHeartRadio celebrates National Hispanic Heritage Month with specially curated playlists spotlighting Hispanic artists for their achievements and contributions to the Hispanic community and culture through their incredible music. Open your free iHeartRadio app and search Hispanic Heritage Month to listen now.
You're listening to the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad on 620 Rip City Radio. Brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Listen on your free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
All right, Godfather. Let's start with Aaron Rodgers. The latest report that's out, multiple outlets report that Rodgers is eyeing a mid-December comeback from his torn Achilles.
Yeah.
That's amazing to me. The fact that he could even possibly come back to a football field after what we saw in the opener is amazing.
It's like witchcraft or something.
And I can
Makes
understand
no
it to a degree. When you're that high level of an athlete, like I would imagine trying to do something that's never been done before is adding extra juice to his rehab and his approach to it. But I like the attitude and the willingness to do whatever it takes to get himself back on the football field. But I've seen it just the last couple of weeks in a hideous loss to the Chargers and last night to the Raiders. Why come back to a crappy football team unless they have some type of legitimate playoff chance? And even then, it's not necessarily the best thing you can do at this stage in his career. It would seem to me it's pretty risky, but I guess if the doctors are giving you a full go-ahead and say it's okay, then why not?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the chances by mid-December that this team has any real
They've
chance.
scored 9 touchdowns all season. 9.
It's been weeks since they've scored even one, it seems like.
They're awful. Their defense is awesome. The offense is a complete disaster.
Yeah.
A disaster.
So I don't know by mid-December if they're going to be in the playoff picture. If they are in the playoff picture, it's going to be a Hail Mary where they have to win every game the rest of the way. And I know Aaron Rodgers is very confident of himself, but on a freshly repaired leg, whether he could engineer something like that. Because really, they have quarterback problems, obviously, but that can't be the only problem with their offense. I think there's probably other issues there too, including the offensive coordinator problem.
Well, the coordinator's a dum-dum, and the offensive line is hot garbage.
Yeah.
My biggest concern for Rodgers is the offensive line and their inability to protect. Here's what they've got coming up on the schedule. At Buffalo, that's a loss. Home against Miami, that's probably a loss.
Yeah.
Atlanta at home and Houston at home.
They'll get Atlanta.
Houston is unknown, although that defense would probably give a young quarterback in strong trouble. After that, at Miami, loss. Home against Washington, a dangerous team, and they're at Cleveland, at New England to close out the year. Yeah, just shut it down, Roger.
Well, the ultimate reason I would say it's crazy, Chad, is that what he's missing this season. Cut your losses and just say you're out for this season, but don't risk next season. You know, that would be crazy to me. You might not ever play again. If you try to come back now, you might get 1 quarter, 5 minutes of action before you re-injure, and then you're done.
Well, I just went through the schedule. More than likely, if they were to come back mid-December, they're going to be 6-8 at that time, which means the best-case scenario with the game at Cleveland would be 9 wins. 9 wins puts you on the edge of maybe being a playoff team. 10 wins would probably do it. 9 wins is questionable. There's no way this team, with or without Rodgers, mid-December is going to get to 10 wins. That's not happening.
Yeah.
9 touchdowns all year. Their offense is a disaster. Hackett's a disaster. Zach Wilson's a disaster. The offensive line is a disaster. Their offensive football has been what we thought it would be when Rodgers went down in the opener.
Yeah, now see, if I were operating the New York Jets, I would have to sit him down and have a conversation with you. Look, we love you, Aaron. We respect that you want to come back and play.
Yeah, tell him no.
But we need you for next year. So can we just sit it out for the rest of the year? Make sure you're strong. Spend this year, just rehabbing, continuing all that. Make sure you're ready because we want you back 100% next year.
Wild. All right, got to give props to the 49ers for dominating the Jacksonville Jaguars yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the bye week is exactly what that team needed. They had been banged up. They had some injuries they had to deal with, but they looked like a refreshed, energized football team against Jacksonville. And Jacksonville's a darn good football team. And that was a non-competitive game from the opening kick all the way till the end. No resistance from the Jags. Complete domination.
I just thought that team looked refreshed coming off the bye and having some guys back, a little extra pop with their playmakers. That was a terrific performance.
Yeah, they really ambushed them. I mean, they got them right from the start of the game, and I think it's one of those games where, gosh, if you're Jacksonville, you think you're playing the team you watched on film for the last couple of games. Well, it's not that team, and I mean, any team with a great Brock Purdy at quarterback, Chad, is going to give you trouble. You better respect them. That's all I can say.
Oh, yeah. Nothing but respect for Brock Purdy, that's for sure. But I give props where they're due, and that was a dominating performance.
Yeah.
Like, they just went in there, and they just choked out the Jags. And what an embarrassing performance by the Jags, too. They had extra time to prepare for that game, too. What were they doing? You didn't know the 49ers were going to come out motivated?
Yeah.
Gosh, that was an embarrassing performance. But Brock Purdy, nearly 300 yards passing. The key was no turnovers, 3 touchdowns. They ran the football for 144 and multiple receivers, 3 receptions for Kittle, 3 for Ayuk, 6 for McCaffrey, Debo with 4. They got everyone involved.
Yeah, and they really won the line of scrimmage, too.
Oh,
They just dominated.
They dominated.
Yeah, no doubt.
Tip of the cap to the 49ers. All right, we'll keep things rolling. When we come back, we got to talk about the Beavs. Everything we talked about last week, I think the Beavs, we got everything we wanted. Production.
Yeah.
Boy, they just pounded Stanford into the ground.
Yeah.
Curb stomp. And DJU, the running backs. That was money. Martinez is awesome, by the way.
Yeah, he was terrific.
Okay, we'll get to that. And then we'll talk with Adam Clanton in Houston, get his thoughts on CJ Stroud at 520.
Here's what you need to know. From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, 4 o'clock chat here. What up? The weekend is set in the Pac-12. Oregon will travel to Tempe to meet the ASU Sun Devils. Kickoff scheduled for 1 on Fox. The Ducks favored by 24. They have lost their last 2 trips to the desert against the Sun Devils. The OSU Beavers will host Washington 4:30 on ABC. OSU favored by a point. We'll get a new batch of college football rankings. Those will drop tomorrow. And the Civil War game with Oregon and Oregon State, the Friday after Thanksgiving, scheduled kickoff time at 5:30. Monday Night Football. Show me a Bronco. Broncos at the Bills, 5:15 on ABC and ESPN. Buffalo favored by 7. Your Portland Trailblazers back in action after losing in LA to the Lakers last night. They'll take on the Utah Jazz tomorrow. Tip-off at 6. Game day will start at 3 with me here on 620 Rip City Radio. More of the Rip City Drive is coming at you. We'll talk with Adam Clanton from Houston at 5:20, and we got a pair of tickets for Lainey Wilson to give away. Listen to us for your chance to win.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad, presented by Lazy Boy. What is your strategy for comfort?
And the Beavers will not run another play. They'll just run it out. Do they need to snap it one more time?
Yeah, they do. Boy, Mike, I don't want them to lose any more yards. They just lost 2.
Now they're at an even 600.
Yeah, they're going to finish probably under 600. Mike.
One more snap, and the game will come to an end.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad.
You know, that wasn't the only case either. I happened to
be down.
I happened to be listening at that time. They were also upset. I think Oregon State allowed a long kickoff return for a touchdown late in the game.
Yeah.
They were not pleased with that either because they wanted that big, convincing score. You know, and I don't blame them because, you know, we're talking about the rankings. Beauty contest with no rules. You got to win by a lot of points.
And they did. 62-17.
Yeah, well, 62-10 would have sounded better, you know?
Yeah, I still can't believe the Beavs dropped 62 on Stanford. They kicked their face in.
They did.
Wasn't even a contest. And the Beavers, everything we talked about, the tune-up, as we called it, for Washington, they needed to find a way to get that offense in high gear and really get a feel for everything, all the details, running the football, having great balance, finding a way to get some big plays in the passing game, get DJU off, check. They did all of it. I mean, they were dominant on the ground, and it was not just one guy. It was the entire crew. 40 carries, 277 yards,
wow.
6.9, nice, per carry, and 6 rushing touchdowns in the game. Martinez with 146. Fenwick, 5 for 61. And just go down the line. I mean, they dominated the line of scrimmage, and then DJU, a couple of touchdowns, no picks, 20 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on the year for him. And Aiden Childs, 5 of 8, 75 yards. He threw for another score, 62-17 the final. I think the Beavs, hey, look, I know Beaver fans are upset because they lost to Washington State. They lost to Arizona. The reality is this is one of the best Beaver teams of all time. They're good enough to beat Washington, and they get their shot coming up on Saturday.
Yeah.
At home.
What I liked about that game, by the way, Ben Gulbranson got into that game late.
Yeah.
They gave him a couple of plays, and he completed a pass. You know, they just set up a little pass for him so he – at least be 1-for-1 this season.
Yeah.
Gosh, he's only like a sophomore. He's going to be around a while. He'll be backing up Childs next season, I assume, if they retain Childs. But it was nice that he got into play. I think that's great because he's been a good soldier all year long.
Let's not forget all the fools trying to tell us about a quarterback competition before the year began.
Yeah, I know.
Total nonsense.
Yeah.
DJU's been good. The Beavs playing their best football this season right now as Washington gets ready to come in. Everything you wanted as a Beaver fan, I think, came out of that game on Saturday.
We talked about it on Friday. Said, and I remember saying, I want to see them score some more points, Chad, because I was getting a little worried about their offense. Hadn't been putting a lot of points on the board, which you have to do against the Huskies. You got to score.
Yes, and I think Oregon State is in a position. I think they're going to win the game on Saturday against Washington. What I love is that they can attack Washington in multiple ways. They can do it through the air, but most importantly, the Beavers are going to run the football. They're going to line up. They're going to run the football. And the great part is about playing Washington. Well, you got to deal with Penix and their wide receivers, and that's a serious problem because those guys are super legit, NFL-type guys. Their defense has holes that can be exploited. Utah got off and had great success in the first half. We saw USC move the football on them. Stanford had success moving the football on them. The Beavers, against that defense, should be able to move the football.
Yeah.
It's just making sure that, one, you don't shoot yourself in the foot with stupid penalties and cough up the football. And then when you get in the red area, cash in with touchdowns. That's it. If they do that, they're going to be in a position to win that game. It's pretty wild that the Beavs, this is how bad the Beavers are. 2-loss Beaver team favored at home over undefeated Washington. They're favored.
That's amazing.
That's called respect from the odds makers, knowing the work that Jonathan Smith has done in that program.
That's right. Yeah.
The Beavers don't get the attention because they come from Corvallis, and they're the Beavers. But Jonathan Smith is one of the best coaches in the country, and that team is playing high-level football this year in spite of the two frustrating losses to Arizona and Washington State. They've been good, really good.
Yeah, they have.
Are they good enough to win back-to-back weeks against Washington and Oregon? I don't know, but I know that they can win this game against Washington. I want this game because I want that win to set up the ultimate matchup in the final Civil War, meaning whoever wins the game gets to go to the Pac-12 title game. That would be spectacular. It would be spectacular. And Arizona's still in the mix, too, by the way.
That's right.
They beat Oregon State. If they win out, they could put pressure on the Beavs. They would want the Beavs to win. Arizona's still got a pathway to the Pac-12 title game, if you can believe that. They host Utah this weekend. They finish up against Arizona State. The Beavs have to play Washington, then they go to Oregon. We'll see how things shake out. But I want the Beavs to win so that we have the best possible scenario going into the final game with Oregon and Oregon State.
So it would be, theoretically, you could have a tie with two lost teams, Arizona, Oregon State, and Oregon. Is that what it would be?
Yes.
Boy, that's deep into some tiebreakers there.
Yeah, very deep because, well, under that scenario, you would have Oregon State with the victory over Oregon, but Arizona with the victory over Oregon State. I think Arizona would get in under that odd circumstance.
I think you're right because Oregon did not play Arizona, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so there's no game to go to between them.
Mm-hmm.
That might, I don't know if that gets them out of it.
So we'll see how things play out. But again, that's a lot of ifs. The question is, can Oregon State get the job done this weekend?
Yeah.
Could you have wanted anything else in that game against Stanford? It was pretty much perfection.
No, they did everything I wanted. Absolutely. DJU, he was really good, right on the money most of the day. And the way they ran the ball, I wanted to see Martinez get going. He hadn't scored. I think they said he'd only scored 3 touchdowns coming into that game. And he took care of that.
Yeah, 9.7 a carry, 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
15 for 146. That's getting it done right there.
Pretty good game.
Gosh, and you can see that's the potential of the Oregon State offense. When they get it rolling on the ground and then the play action becomes a major part of their offense, look the heck out. That's why if they can get the ground game really cranked up against Washington, the play action will become a factor. And then DJU can, get on those boots and those rolls outside the pocket where he's really effective. And this game, it means a lot to Jonathan Smith.
Sure.
He was kind of unceremoniously let go and run out of Washington, took the job at Oregon State. And there was a lot of thought from Husky fans at the time when Smith left that he was somehow the problem with their offense, which has proven to be total, poppycock. Yeah, it's nonsense. Smith is great. And I props to him for, getting his team to bounce back after that difficult loss to Arizona. They bounced back with a win over Colorado, a win over Stanford, and now in a position to go in and take care of business against Washington. And if you beat Washington, I somehow believe that takes away a lot of the sting from the losses to Washington State and also Arizona.
So how many points is it going to take for them to beat the Huskies?
I think they have to score 30 or more. You get to 30, you're in a good position to be able to make it happen.
That means you can hold them under 30.
Yeah, I think they could keep Washington down to about 28.
Wow.
I really do, because the Beaver defense is legit. I know you're concerned based off of the earlier performance against Washington State, but the reality is that after they got lit up by the Cougs, they've tightened it up on the back end. They haven't been lit up like that before or since then. So I think they're just playing much better defensively. And it's later in the year. They'll be ready to go. But it's tough, man. Michael Penix is legit.
Yeah.
He makes
so
good
are
throws.
his receivers.
Receivers are so good.
Yeah.
And even when you have coverage, they're so physical they can go up and high point the ball.
That's what scares me. Penix is real good. We know that. But those receivers, man, they catch everything.
All right, what do you think about the news that Jimbo Fisher let go from Texas A&M, and they're going to pay him the full buyout of $76 million?
Guy had the greatest contract ever. No offset either. He can take another job and still get all that money in addition to what he's making where he's working now.
It's amazing.
That's crazy.
What I thought was amazing is how quickly agents go to work as soon as they get word that Jimbo Fisher's going to be out. Because all of a sudden, within nanoseconds of the report that Fisher was on his way out, you get reports of all the coaches who are on the list as possibilities.
Yeah.
Those are absolutely agent leaks, and it's genius because even if Dan Lanning has no interest in leaving Oregon whatsoever, your agent goes out there and leaks the idea that he might go to A&M. I guarantee you that Dan Lanning, in the next couple of weeks, will get another raise and extension from the Ducks.
I think Phil Knight has already got the pen out, and the checkbook is out. He's just waiting to fill in the final figure.
Lanning would make a lot of sense. He's got SEC ties.
Yeah.
Texas A&M is looking for a guy that can come in and really restore the luster to that program. So he would make sense. But the reality is with A&M, they're going to be in contention with anyone they want because the Board of Regents there at A&M, they got a lot of money, and they're willing to spend big to try and get that program on track. It's hard to compete against a school like that that's got so much funds because they'll pay whatever dollar amounts necessary to get the job done if they believe they're hiring the right coach.
Yeah. Well, I remember when Lanning came in and the Ducks thought they had done something really good. They put a $20 million buyout on his head.
Yeah.
And figured, well, that's going to deter. It's not going to deter these guys. They're already paying so much to get rid of their old coach that they'll be happy to pay that to get a new one.
Oil money has no bounds.
Yeah. Is that what it is mostly, you think? Oil money?
Yeah, I think oil money's a big part of it. They crazy down there, Godfather.
Yeah,
My Nana warned me about Texas a long time ago.
Well, they crazy about football, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, they'll spend big.
Yeah.
Like $76 million just to get rid of a coach. Yeah, we're done with Jimbo.
That's
He's
nuts.
underachieved. What a great retirement package that is. That makes Purs look silly.
Yeah. No, and you know what? I don't blame him at all. You get the most money you can get. I do think it's somewhat irresponsible to give a coach like that much money, but I guess if you have it, spend it.
Yeah, they did not anticipate him underachieving. Good for him. He can do whatever he wants now. Do I want to sit back and enjoy the good life and play golf, or do I want to go and take a job? And
these guys are all sick. He'll be back coaching in no time, Chad. Don't you think? These guys they're in the game. They
can't get away from it.
Yeah.
They'd rather work nonstop coaching football than they would sit back playing golf and enjoying their money.
Mm-hmm.
They need to let people like you and I have some of that money so we can show them how to enjoy it.
I'd be happy to take some of it off their hands.
I would do exactly what you and I have talked about. Not buy a team, but travel around to the best stadiums, staying at the best hotels, watching all the best teams.
Yeah, we just have that jet on the runway, our PJ, our private jet, and we're ready to go every weekend.
What'd you call that, a BJ?
PJ.
Oh, okay.
Like pajamas, PJ, private jet.
Okay.
That's what the rich guys call it.
All right, well, I'll take a PJ and the best tickets that we can get our hands on to.
We won't have any trouble getting
Come on, Jimbo.
Yeah.
All right, we'll come back. We're going to dive into the NFL. A lot of great storylines coming out of yesterday. We'll get into it next, including C.J. Stroud, the rookie sensation for the Houston Texans. Before we reveal which superstars will join us on our iHeartRadio Jingle Ball Tour this year, relive the biggest shows and artists from Jingle Ball's past on our iHeartRadio exclusive Jingle Ball playlist. Open your free iHeartRadio app and search Jingle Ball to listen from anywhere, anytime.
The Rip City Drive, brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Here on 620 Rip City Radio. Listen on your free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
Boy, Shacker pulling out some classics right there. Little Julian Lennon. I just watched the interview. He was on Club Random with Bill Maher.
Yeah.
Very good.
Was it?
Yep. Not easy growing up as the son of John Lennon, but he's created his own path, kind of carved it out.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to be ashamed of. Very interesting. So I would recommend that. Do you think the Beavers have a reasonable gripe for being overlooked by game day this weekend? What's your take on this?
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, game day should be there. I just can't get too fired up about college game day. I mean, I'm a little surprised people care so much about it.
Yeah.
They feel like they've been dissed, and I think for Oregon State at this point, that's a really raw subject. You know, they feel like they've been abandoned. They're orphans right now to a degree, and it all plays into that, I think. So I sympathize with them. I think that they would be wise, though, not to worry so much about that. They didn't want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go stand in the cold and the rain to watch that show.
I mean, the Beavs are one of the best teams in the country. Washington is unbeaten and has a legit Heisman candidate in Michael Penix. It's going to be a heck of a game. Why aren't they there? They chose the James Madison story over Corvallis?
Well, I think there's a lot of factors, Chad. I think when you look at television executives and what they look for major brands that are going to lead to big-time viewership. And they look for big matchups. And the story, the James Madison story, is very interesting to tell. It's not the number 5 versus 10 matchups, but it's an interesting story. They've come up with the big boys now, but they're not eligible for a bowl game, even though they're undefeated. And they're going to tell that story. And I think they like to go to the lower division teams every once in a while. They've done this in the past. But I don't, first of all, people are saying it's because of, McAfee didn't want to go there. Herbie didn't want to go there. No, those guys don't get any say. They tell them every week where they're going. They don't ask them. They're employees. They send them a check. Those guys, for the check they get, they'll go wherever they tell them. So, no, this is some suit in an office building in Connecticut somewhere making this call, believing he's doing the right thing based on how many people will watch it. And unfortunately for Oregon State, they're not the national brand that a lot of teams are. Now, granted, either is James Madison, but they'd like that story. It might even be cheaper for them to do the show from there than it would be to do it from out here. It's always money. Follow the money. It's probably somehow they're going to make more money out of doing that game.
Oregon State Washington is arguably the best game of the weekend.
Oh,
this
sure.
Coming weekend.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they always pick the best game, though.
No, but I'm sorry. I'm going to go with I'll take the top 10 matchup over the James Madison story.
Oh, me too, Chad. Me too. I think that's where they should be.
I guess what I'm trying to say is this suit, whoever's got connections to James Madison that's doing them a large, it's a mistake. Because the majority of fans don't care about the story of James Madison. They care about great football games.
Right.
That's what we get all jacked up on.
Yeah. But, they're doing the game with their number one team. It's going to be on ABC, and Fowler and Herbstreit are going to be on that game. So they're paying attention to that game. And if you watch game day in the morning, which I do because I get up early on Saturday mornings, it's about all the games. Now, they do have the fans from that home team there, but it's really about all the games. And I don't think they're necessarily getting dissed when ESPN sends out their number one team to do that game.
Yeah, I think they're getting dissed.
Okay.
If they're choosing James Madison over Washington and Oregon State, I think that's crazy. But, oh, well, go out there and win the game, and then you can be like, hey, see what you missed out on? Yeah, we got a chance to go out there and make it happen. I can tell you're really heartbroken over it. I don't care one way or the other. I just want Oregon State to beat Washington. beat Washington, and then you can give a middle finger to game day.
Yeah, well, if it's an exciting game, they'll I don't know if they'll be sorry or not, because I don't know what they're looking for from game day.
I think I just accidentally flipped off our YouTube crowd too.
Yeah, I think you did too. But
I was just trying to communicate.
Yeah, Chad, again, like I say, yeah, they should be in Corvallis.
Well, you're just trying to sell me on this James Madison story like somehow it mattered.
No, I'm just telling you why they probably did it. That's why they did it. They found some value in that story somewhere, somehow. They should be in Corvallis. But come on, let's not get too upset over it.
It's the best town in the Pac-12.
No,
right?
it's the best college town in the Pac-12.
Yeah, that's what I said. The best town in the Pac-12. The best college
it's not
town.
the best town.
There we go again. Let's get hung up on semantics, Godfather.
Well.
Yes, it's the best college town. You knew exactly what I was trying to say in that ranking somewhere. That's what they call them, the best college town in the Pac-12.
They do.
Who came up with that list?
I think somewhere somebody voted on that. It might have been a vote in Corvallis, I think.
Yeah, a vote in Corvallis.
But, in today's world, you
all right,
can
I'm
claim
done talking
whatever
about
you
this.
wanna
It's giving me
claim.
a headache, all right? You're annoying me. James Madison is annoying me. I don't care about game day. I don't care. They don't want to go to Corvallis.
You
Who cares?
shouldn't care
I don't
about
care.
it.
It's just this,
Well,
this whole
why-
conversation.
why-
I'm sorry I brought it up. all
Good.
right?
Why are you worried about it?
I'm not worried about it. You're irritating me. James
Good.
Madison is irritating me.
Good.
I just want Oregon State to win a game of substance this year. Beat Washington, for crying out loud. I've had enough of Husky fans, too, by the way. They're horrible. They're annoying and need to be knocked off their perch, and Oregon State needs to win a game of substance. Quit whining about not having game day show up. Go out there and kick the crap out of Washington. And then everyone's going to talk about you all weekend because you cracked Washington.
Right.
All that matters is just win the big games.
Yeah,
This
the
is a big
games are-
game.
Well, the games are the only thing that matters anyway. Who cares about game day?
I don't. All right, let's stop talking about it. I'll tell you one thing I do care about. Justin Herbert not having his career wasted by a pathetic head coach in Brandon Staley. They've got to fire this guy. Here's the part that kills me. The Chargers are spending more money than any team in the NFL on their defense. And their coach, Brandon Staley, is supposed to be a defensive coach. And yet in that game yesterday, it's tied up at 38. And you got to get the ball back to win the game. First play out of the gate, they get like 40 yards on a pass, and they're automatically in field goal range. They run out the clock, they kick the field goal, and game over.
Yeah.
They don't even get stops on their defense when they need it most, and they got a defensive coach and a high-paid defense. So you're not even getting the most out of what you're paying your coach for. And Justin Herbert, look, he is not the problem.
No.
Okay? If you watched him yesterday, that guy was throwing dimes all over the field. He can do anything on a football field that he wants to do. He's a great leader. He's a team guy. He can make every throw. He's a superstar. He is not the issue. He's a badass. Fire the coach. They've got to get this right. The problem is their ownership is cheap, and they keep dragging their heels, and they've already wasted the rookie contract of Justin Herbert. So now they're paying him big money, and it's hard to put a roster together. I don't understand what they're doing. But this Staley guy, it's like, get over it, man. He blew it in Jacksonville. They should not be under 500. They're 4-5 with Justin Herbert and that high-paid defense.
Well, let's face it. He should have been fired after last season.
Yes.
And they were too cheap to do it.
Yes.
This is what happens.
Yes. You're paying a price for your cheapness.
Yeah.
You get frugal in the NFL and you lose games. It's so stupid, man.
No, if you can't afford to do what's right, get out. Sell your team to somebody else, right?
Godfather, Justin Herbert is phenomenal.
I know.
Did you see him yesterday?
Yes.
Every time he had to have a response, he did.
I know. He answered every single time in the second half. It was pathetic. They could never get a stop.
Do you think any of the players on that team actually respect Brandon Staley? He doesn't really have a presence on the sideline.
No.
I know he's a smart guy, but what's their mentality? What's their calling card? Because I can tell you what, I know when I look at the Detroit Lions what they are. We're going to be a physical football team. We're going to play with emotion, and we're going to go out there and try to kick the crap out of our opponents because it comes from the head coach who's got a strong personality and is a great leader.
Mm-hmm.
I know what the Lions are because Dan Campbell shows me week in and week out. The Chargers need to make a change immediately. Justin Herbert is too cool and too good of a quarterback to be wasted away like this. This is what bad ownership does. Cheap ownership.
Yeah.
All because they're trying to save a couple of pennies because they don't want to go out and pay a legitimate head coach. It's embarrassing, Godfather, but Detroit, offensive line is super legit. Jared Goff is playing the best football of his career. Mm-hmm. They got weapons everywhere and speed and multiple running backs. And defensively, they get after it. They are absolutely a contender in the NFC. I don't think they're the best team, but they're going to have a very good record at the end of the year. And if they get a couple of games at home and you got to go into the Dome in those conditions where Goff can be at his best and you've got to deal with the speed that they have on offense, and then with that offensive line, the way they open it up, I like what I see from the Lions. Dan Campbell's done a heck of a job. Props to him and that team because they look great. And props to Jared Goff for restoring his career, going there and playing good football and being a team leader as well. They impressed the heck out of me.
Yeah.
That was a big-time win.
Yeah, they've done a great job, and I think Campbell deserves a lot of credit for this. They're a talented team, but they're not really ultimately supremely talented. He's getting the most out of what he has, which is all you can ask from any coach. If Staley was getting the most out of what he has, their record would be reversed. And, I mean, I don't even want to talk about it. They are so much better than what they played through this year.
Yeah.
Look at the stars they have on there. They have stars on their team.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really embarrassing.
It's crazy.
Especially in a year where Kansas City is not quite what we've seen.
Yeah.
And the Chargers with Herbert can't be in a position to capitalize. And they're going to suffer this year and probably miss the playoffs. And they've got no one to blame but themselves because of their cheapness. They chose not to go out and make a coaching change. I guess the bright side in all of this is that Staley is probably going to get fired after the season.
Oh, he's got to. How could you keep him another year?
It's really bad.
Well, they're lucky that they have – I mean, their situation's unique. They're not playing in San Diego anymore, so I don't think they're as worried about their fan base as most franchises would be because they don't really have a fan base anymore. It's kind of crazy that most games you see, and I saw it again with Detroit, there's louder cheers for the visiting team than there is for the home team.
Yeah, they don't even factor in L.A., which is embarrassing too. Yeah. I just don't want to hear any talk about how Herbert needs to do this or Herbert's not that. No, he's fine. The quarterback is not the problem. He is the solution. They just need to find a head coach that can take them to the next level. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to ask you about C.J. Stroud. I really don't know what to say, Godfather. I didn't think he was going to be like this.
Well, who did? You know,
he is unbelievable. I mean, what do you think? How have the Texans been able to get him in a position where he's played like this? I mean, there he is yesterday leading his team to victory in comeback fashion in Cincinnati against Joe Burrow. He even overcame a poor interception late in the game that could have cost him. And there on the final drive, he was throwing dimes to set them up for the game-winning field goal.
Yeah, you talk about a rookie quarterback in a big game. He throws a pick late in the game. For a lot of these guys, it would destroy them.
They would unravel.
For the rest of the game, you wouldn't get much from him. This guy is undeterred. You can't discourage him. He's positive. I still think the thing he has that some of them don't have, I think he's really smart. I really do. I don't see how you could do this without being able to process all these things that are going on around him. It takes guys years. They used to make sure every rookie had to come in and apprentice for a year behind the starting quarterback before they could even handle it all. Now, that's changed, obviously. But this kid, to do what he's doing as a rookie, it's crazy. We haven't seen a rookie quarterback do this in a long time.
He's awesome. And you remember when he was coming out of college, all the concerns, right, with the aptitude because he didn't test well at the combine. Also, he played at Ohio State, so the conventional wisdom was, well, it's like, yeah, of course he looked good at Ohio State. He was surrounded by great talent, especially at wide receiver. So he ends up not going number one, and look at him now. He's in the pocket. He's a pocket passer, but he's mobile enough to get out and run. He saw that with the touchdown he ran for yesterday. He's got the strong arm. He can make all the throws. And like you said, the smarts, the processing. He's doing high-level things as a rookie at the line of scrimmage. And I was watching his teammates yesterday, the way they were responding to his play. They were getting energized from his play, and they believe in him.
Oh, yeah. The leadership piece is there. There is no doubt about that. They'd follow him anywhere.
Boy. And then you factor in a rookie head coach, too, D'Amico Ryans.
That's amazing, too.
And we'll talk to Adam Clanton, who's down in Houston coming up at 5:20. He loves him and really loves him and was happy when they hired him, but he's tough. Look at the 49ers defense this year. It's taken a step back without D'Amico Ryans, and he's gone into Houston and has done a heck of a job. And they've drafted well. And C.J. Stroud looks like a surefire superstar in the league. He's just big-time Godfather. He's already one of the top quarterbacks in the league, and he's only halfway through his first season. Yeah. He's not going anywhere. And they're going to factor into the playoff race. If you would have told me before the year that Houston was going to the playoffs, I would have said, you crazy, man.
Yeah.
But look at him now.
Well, and boy, buy stock in a team right now. That stock's going to prove out to be pretty well because you got him on that cheap contract for a while.
And with all that said, Burrow had his team in a position to win, and Boyd dropped the pass in the end zone.
Right.
Man, Joe Burrow's good. He was throwing dimes. There was some great quarterback play yesterday. Dobbs got another one for Minnesota. C.J. Stroud, the rookie, was out there killing it. Joe Burrow making big-time throws. Justin Herbert, Jared Goff. I mean, just take your pick. There was great quarterback play. Brock Purdy yesterday. All across the league, big-time quarterback play. Dak Prescott was on fire against the crappy Giants. It was fun to watch.
Yeah.
The Giants suck. What a disaster they are. And DeVito, the quarterback. I mean, that guy, he was wearing a gold chain and smelled like Aqua Velva, man.
I wonder if Eli Manning is still living in New York, because if he is, he's the best quarterback in New York right now.
Yes. Gosh. Yeah, it's fun, man. Props to C.J. Stroud. I love watching youngsters go out there and kill it. Isn't it fun to see young guys out there just taking advantage of the opportunity?
Well, to me, it's just astounding. I've never seen production like this from a rookie quarterback. Passing for 400 yards sometimes.
Yeah, 470 and 5 touchdowns the week before. I mean, the guy's on fire. He looks great. He looks really good. I'm impressed. I thought Baltimore and Cleveland was terrific. Those two teams are physical and get after it. You know, props to Cleveland for coming back. I mean, they were down 31-17. They come back and win it 33-31. I had written them off dead, and they came back and battled back. Tough teams. And you look at these teams now that have drafted well the last few years and what that can do for a franchise. Baltimore's loaded up with talent. Cleveland looks good. Cincinnati's loaded up. I mean, there's some good teams in the AFC. That playoff race is going to be fascinating.
What about Watson? Second half.
He was great.
He looked like the old Watson, didn't he?
He did. And as Frank pointed out, he's 5-1. His record's 5-1 this year when he starts for the Browns. That's their record. So clearly they're making some noise. And if he can continue to make strides like we've seen over the last couple of weeks, they're going to be a factor, a serious problem. I still like Kansas City as the best team, but they're going to have plenty of challengers down the stretch. Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati. Those are kind of the teams I look at as the main competition for Kansas City right now.
Yeah, and it would certainly be advantageous to them to continue to play well and have the home field throughout the playoffs like they're so accustomed to in most cases.
Patrick Mahomes has never played a road playoff game in his career. He doesn't even know what that's like. He's only played home games at Kansas City. I hate that. It's embarrassing. Someone needs to knock them off their perch so they have to go on the road.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
It's much easier to make the Super Bowl when you're playing at home every single year.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I don't know what to make of the AFC. See, now
Especially
Baltimore, who we thought last week was the best team in the AFC, now we're like, I don't know.
Not so much. Yeah. And by the way, Kansas City, people talk about that as one of the toughest places to play in the league.
Yeah, Lo Neal told me there was nothing like it when you would go there as a visiting opponent.
Yeah, crazy.
And for years, it was Elway. Always tough for Elway to get wins at Arrowhead. I have a lot of respect for that. That fan base is they're loud, and I think the two loudest outdoor stadiums right now are Kansas City and Seattle. Seattle's loud, too, when they get cranked up.
Yeah.
All right, we'll come back. We got to talk about the Trailblazers. Some guy I don't even know was out there balling last night for the Trailblazers. We'll get the Godfather's take on Doo-Wop Reef.
Yeah.
And, the Blazers, again, played hard and competed, which is nice. One of the basics in basketball or sports, a couple of guys forgot last night, and it cost them at the end of that game.
Oh, yeah.
Chase down the ball, hustle.
Yeah, don't give up on a play.
Don't assume. We'll get to that next on the Rip City Drive. iHeartRadio celebrates National Hispanic Heritage Month with specially curated playlists spotlighting Hispanic artists for their achievements and contributions to the Hispanic community and culture through their incredible music. Open your free iHeartRadio app and search Hispanic Heritage Month to listen now.
Sharp nearly threw it away. Now here comes Torian. What a hustle play. Prince scores.
That's a great hustle play.
What a play by Torian. Sharp nearly threw it away. Now here comes Torian. What a hustle play. Prince scores.
That's a great hustle play.
What?
Boy, that was a big play at the end of the game last night. The Blazers only down by 3 at 106-103, a chance to stay within striking distance and get a victory. And then we saw the turnover by Skylar Mays, and for some reason, DeAndre Ayton and Mays did not try to track the ball down. It looked like it was going to bounce out of bounds, and they didn't hustle. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Torian Prince able to scoop it up and get an uncontested layup and put the Lakers up 5, which essentially ended the game at that point. And I'm not here to nitpick. I'm just saying that that's a basic one-on-one thing you learn at a young age. You got to continue. You got to finish the play, Godfather.
Yeah, it's almost like they thought it was going to go out of bounds or that it was over and back or whatever, and they just didn't. They didn't move. Yeah. And Ayton took a lot of heat on the web after that play, and there's actually a YouTube version of it up there, and it wasn't a good look for him. It wasn't. I mean, you got to play hard at that point of the game. The game's on the line for them. They had a chance until that play, and then it was out the window then.
Yeah, I don't think he was jaking it on that play. I just think that he and also Mays thought the ball was going to trickle out of bounds.
Yeah,
and it was a mistake. And it looks bad. You can't let that happen. You got to chase it down. David Michaelis, or a former basketball player and good friend and listener to the show, he chimed in and said, "Great coach I had always said, play hard, play smart, play together." That's right. You got to play hard.
One of my coaches used to say, "Don't think. It weakens the nation."
Yeah, it's true. Just go out there
play.
and do. Just play.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, the Blazers winning there shorthanded once again, and Chauncey Billups has got that group fighting hard. In fact,
they played well.
The Lakers opened it up in the third quarter, and they took a double-digit lead at 11 points going into the fourth, and you thought, okay, they're done. 12-2 run to open up the quarter. The Blazers right back in it, thanks to some big shots from Jeremy Grant. Lakers extend it to 8. The Blazers go on a 7-0 run, so they continue to play hard and execute. And I saw, again, functions of that on both ends of the floor last night with some young players and guys who you would not expect to see in basketball games out there on the floor. So I give Chauncey Billups credit. I wasn't expecting a win in Sacramento or a win in L.A., but to see them go down there and compete and put themselves in a position to win games is pretty impressive to me, especially when you're out there with a makeshift lineup.
Yeah, a makeshift lineup. And not only that, I know LeBron didn't play, but Anthony Davis is a real problem for them. They don't really have the size to deal with him.
He's an animal. He is an absolute animal, and that was my biggest concern going in, as it has been the last few years with the Lakers, because I don't care what people say, oh, Davis this and Davis that, he's not healthy. Well, when he's on the floor, he's dominant. Mm-hmm. And we saw it last night. At both ends. Yeah. He changes shots. He's able to get to the foul line, and that was the difference last night for the Lakers. So I think their advantage was plus 23 at the foul line. The Blazers only shot 9 free throws in the game, 1 in the second half. I think it was on a technical.
Yeah.
The Lakers were determined with their guards early on to get into the paint. They did a good job of putting Davis in a position to get to his spots. Hachi was able to get, into the paint. That's where the game was won. And the Blazers actually did a pretty decent job last night. They were plus 27 at the three-point line. It's not going to be too many times this year where we can say that.
No kidding.
And yet they couldn't get it done. Dominated plus 20 in the paint for the Lakers, and the foul line was a big advantage. But that's size. That's being aggressive, and that's where it paid off. But you got to talk to me about Duop Reef, this newcomer who was playing some G League ball, came in last night, was very effective. What did you think about Reef's play?
I have liked him before, Chad. I remember watching him in the World Championships. He played for Australia. And I always watch the Aussies play because they have a lot of NBA guys. And then they usually mix in a couple of young guys who are going to be NBA players. So you watch them, and I always watch them just for Patty Mills, if nothing else, and Joe Ingles. but they play hard. They know how to play in Australia. They have their own pro league. They've churned out some pretty good players, and they always play hard. Well, this guy, I saw him play. Now, he's no kid. I think he's late 20s. He's been around playing all over the world. He's played in China. He's played in Europe. He's played all over. And I've been surprised that he hasn't really had a shot with anybody in the NBA, at least a meaningful chance. But he's a big guy who can shoot threes. To me, that's a valuable asset in today's basketball. I liked him. I like what he brings to the floor. He can rebound. He's a tough customer, too. He doesn't take anything off anybody.
The one thing I would like to see from, and you're right, Reef was impressive last night because when he went in, I was like, what are they going to get from this guy?
Yeah.
That was my attitude. And then I was like, I was impressed.
Yeah.
Skylar Mays had his two-way deal converted into a full NBA contract. I really like this guy.
I do, too.
I like his attitude. I like his demeanor. I like the way he plays. And he's good off the bounce. He's got a soft, feathery touch. We saw a nice little teardrop in a runner last night. He's good.
Yeah, see, and I think this is a smart move by the front office. You're signing these guys to sort of, fill the gaps while you have all these injuries. You don't always have to go out and get a kid. You don't have to have young players. Skylar Mays is a guy that's been around for a while. He spent 2 years with Atlanta, I think.
Yep.
He's a smart player.
Very smart.
Knows the NBA game. He knows how to play. This is a guy who can actually help you out. He's a positive contributor, and I think he's a rotation player even after the other guys come back. He can help you with his intelligence, and he makes shots, which what are they looking for? They're looking for shot makers right now.
And he can handle the rock and be a backup point guard, something they've needed too. So that was impressive. Props to Skylar Mays. I thought Shaedon Sharpe did not play particularly well last night.
Yeah.
He, as it was put to me, and I think Jeremy Grant has talked about this, I don't think he realizes how good he is. His decision-making when he's attacking off the bounce, sometimes he jumps too early. Sometimes he'll stop on a play for a pull-up when he could have probably gotten around the corner and attacked the rim. He's just not quite in sync, and you see those mistakes at times.
Well, what I see, Chad, is what I've seen from other guys of his nature. He's a dunker. He loves to dunk. Everybody loves to see him dunk. And with those guys, what do they want to do? They want to get all the way to the rim to dunk the ball. And sometimes you can over-penetrate thinking you're going to get the dunk, and then you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And that happens to him once in a while. I think he'll be fine. It's just that experience thing again where he hasn't played enough seriously with the ball in his hands in an NBA game to know all these things. I think we got to give him another year before he really gets accustomed to the kind of deep pool that he's in. They've thrown him in to the deep end of the pool here. This is not easy for a guy with limited experience.
Yeah, it's deep end. Like he had the one play where he leapt from the foul line like he was going to go MJ. He teabagged Anthony Davis and got called for the offensive foul.
That was kind of weird, yeah.
I'm like, at first I was like, oh, impressive. What do you think he'd do? Just dunk over Anthony Davis? And I was like, so I appreciate the aggressiveness, but it's like you gotta control that. He's like a wild stallion.
Yeah.
It's tough for the youngsters. But man, props to Chauncey Billups and that group playing hard. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Entertainment. Competitive, and getting a bunch of young guys with very little experience to play hard and do some execution down the stretch to keep themselves in a position was cool.
Well, and what's good, Chad, is they're keeping these, even the losses, they're keeping them close enough that you can learn more from those games. You learn more from a close game. All that stuff in the final 2 minutes, very useful for young players.
All right, we'll come back, and when we do, we'll talk about the college football playoff rankings that are going to come up and some of the scenarios you could look at if you're an Oregon Duck fan. Then we'll talk with Adam Clanton at 5:20 and get his take on C.J. Stroud. He's down in Houston. You got the Rip City Drive.
Here's what you need to know. From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, it's now 5 o'clock. Monday Night Football coming up in 15 minutes on ABC and ESPN. The Denver Broncos, who have won 2 straight, taking on the Bills in Buffalo. And right now the Bills are favored by 7. Elsewhere from the NFL, Robert Saleh, coach of the Jets, says they will not make a switch at quarterback, even with their struggles on offense. This weekend is set with the schedule. Pac-12 football. Oregon will travel to Tempe to meet the Sun Devils. Kickoff schedule for 1. It's going to be on Fox. The Ducks favored by 24. On ABC at 4:30, the OSU Beavers will host Washington. Right now, Oregon State favored by a point. We'll get a latest batch of college football playoff rankings coming up tomorrow. Your Trailblazers back in action tomorrow. They're in Utah to meet the Jazz. Tip-off at 6. Game day will start at 3 o'clock here on 620 Rip City Radio. We're going to head to Houston at 5:20 and talk with Adam Clanton about the Texans. We'll give away a pair of tickets for Laney Wilson next.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio.
Hey, Shacker, I love Greg Papa. He's one of my favorites, but you got to settle down with all the 49er highlights, all right? You and Burkhardt do not make a majority. All right, we have tickets that we're going to give away right now. Laney Wilson is going to be here September 28th at the RV Inn Style Resorts Amphitheater. You can get your tickets this Friday morning, November 17th at 10 a.m. at Ticketmaster.com. So let's give away a pair of tickets right now. If you want to see Laney Wilson in concert on September 28th, fire away with your phone calls right now. We'll take caller number 1, 503-248-0620. First caller through, 503-248-0620. We'll get a pair of tickets to see Laney Wilson in concert September 28th at the RVN Style Resorts Amphitheater. 503-248-0620. Fire away. First caller through gets a pair of tickets for Laney Wilson. 503-248-0620. All right, Godfather. Ducks, they didn't cover, but they got the win in a game against USC on Saturday where, to me, it felt like from start until finish, they had complete control of that game, especially Bo Nix, over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns passing.
I agree with you, Chad. They did have control. I think they would have liked to have probably won by 20, beaten the spread, make it look a little better. And they could have, but they didn't, and that's fine. They let USC back in through the door, into the game in the fourth quarter. I was thinking going into the fourth quarter, this was going to look pretty good for them because they had held the Trojans down very well in the first 3 quarters. And that's impressive. When you can shut down an offense like that for a while, that's pretty important. But they let them get up off the deck.
Yeah, one thing that really jumped out to me with USC is their offensive line sucks too. We thought going into the year it was going to be good, but the Ducks able to get pressure and make Caleb uncomfortable, and that made a difference in the game. He's still fun to watch. Both quarterbacks, I thought there were a couple of moments where I was watching Caleb. I'm like, he's like Harry Houdini out there. Yeah. You think he got an angle on him, and he's able to spin out of it and make a play downfield. But I just thought Bo Nix was razor sharp. Getting the ball to his playmakers. They utilized their speed, and their offense was terrific, basically 600 yards of total offense, but it was in the reverse order. I thought they were going to run and be dominant with the run game. No, it was Bo Nix making big plays with his arm. They were able to run when they wanted to, but they really looked to exploit them in the passing game. And I love Tez Johnson and his speed on the outside. We saw that on the spin and the acceleration. And, Troy Franklin is just one of the best in the country.
Yeah, for sure. But I want to say something about the Oregon defense, Chad. I think the next time they play Washington, assuming they do, if they do, they're going to get more pressure on Penix than they did the first time around. I think their pass rush has improved throughout the season. They looked very good on pressures against USC. I thought they got to him a lot and made his life miserable even when they didn't sack him.
Yeah. The difference, what makes it hard with Penix compared to a guy like Williams, Penix is frustrating to defend because he doesn't hold on to the football.
Right. He unloads quick. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. It's like he gets the ball and boom, it's out.
But he doesn't have the kind of mobility that Caleb has either.
That's true. So, yeah, Oregon they were effective. The reason why it's so important right now is it really is a beauty contest. You've got to go out there and make a statement right now if you're the Pac-12, especially if you're Oregon with one loss, to showcase what you can do. And the scenario that we're talking about, Godfather, it comes down to the what-ifs, right? And there's a lot of what-ifs out there. But Joel Klatt laid this out perfectly, and I think it's a wonderful question. And I want you Duck fans to consider this. The hypothetical college football playoff scenario. You've got two teams in, 13-0 Big Ten champ, which is probably going to be Michigan. You have 13-0 Florida State. So if those two teams go undefeated, they're in. What if you have the rest of these scenarios for the committee? A 12-1 Oregon conference champ, a 12-1 Texas conference champ, 12-1 Bama conference champ, one loss Georgia, no conference champ, and one loss Washington, no conference champ. Now, Joel Klatt, and he's not the only one. There are multiple people on the national level that will agree with this. Under that scenario, Texas, because they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, would get in. So really it comes down to a choice of two teams, Oregon or Alabama.
Yeah.
And if they were to choose Oregon under those circumstances, that means they'd be leaving the SEC out of the playoff.
Which they're not going to do.
I would agree with that.
How can they? They can't leave the SEC out.
So you're going to leave the SEC out and choose a Pac-12 school?
No.
I think the only for sure scenario for the Pac-12 right now is Washington not losing a game. They're undefeated. They're in.
Yeah.
That is a done deal.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, it's not a done deal. So you and I were talking about this. You really, to be safe and make sure everything goes your way, you want Texas to take on a loss there at Iowa State this weekend, and they've got the Big 12 championship game against Oklahoma or Kansas State or Oklahoma State. And you probably need to make sure that Georgia just wins out.
Yeah. If Georgia beats Alabama, I think you take Alabama out of the picture because they're going to have two losses.
Yes. The other issue right now is strength of schedule. I just looked up the recent rankings following the weekend. Oregon is 52nd in the country in their strength of schedule. Alabama's number 2 right now. Texas ranked well ahead of Oregon in strength of schedule.
Mm.
Florida State is 15 spots ahead of Oregon in strength of schedule. Those are going to be issues for the Pac-12 as we near the decision time for the committee if they've got multiple one-loss conference champs to look at. So it's just something to keep in mind. It sucks because this is the best year I've ever seen from the Pac-12.
Yeah. Well, what we're saying, Chad, is winning out, becoming the conference champs for Oregon, no guarantee.
No guarantee.
None.
So what you really want is Alabama and Texas to take a loss. If that happens, then you're guaranteed of getting in if you finish off with one loss in a conference champ.
And it wouldn't hurt if you do get to the conference title game to have Washington unbeaten and to beat Washington pretty soundly.
Yeah, handily. And that would improve the strength of schedule. That would give you a win over, presumably at that time, maybe a top 4 team potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exactly what they need. So, and what's frustrating is that you look back at that Washington game, if Dan Lanning had taken a couple of field goals and punted the football at the end of the game, they're in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
That's how close these games are. This is the problem with the 4-team playoff, is that you leave it in the hands of the committee who have to choose. You never want that. The 12-team playoff is going to be much better. If we were in a 12-team scenario right now, Oregon would be in for sure.
Yeah.
It'd just be a matter of seeding and situation. It would be fun when you consider some of the potential matchups, like Oregon and Michigan possibly facing off in the national semifinal. How great would that be?
Yeah.
One team in the Big Ten, the other team's going to be joining the conference next year. Jim Harbaugh and all the stuff surrounding Michigan. That would be a fabulous football game.
That would be a lot of fun.
And it's the type of game that Dan Lanning wants because it's two physical football teams. Michigan, they go into Penn State without Jim Harbaugh because the Big Ten is kind of a joke show. And they didn't even throw a pass in the second half. They basically went out there and said, look, screw the Big Ten, screw Penn State. We're just going to win this game by physically outperforming them to the line of scrimmage. And they did.
Yeah, I just think Penn State was overrated all season. I'm not seeing it from them. Their offense was borderline inept in the 2 games they needed to win so far. And
They don't trust their quarterback. They're unwilling to
No.
allow their quarterback to try and do anything downfield.
Yeah.
And you cannot beat Michigan or Ohio State or any of the top teams in the country by trying to nickel and dime. You've got to go over the top, and they can't do it.
Yeah, well, and this is the era of the quarterback. There's some really good ones out there. If you don't have one, I'm sorry, you're out of the picture. Can't do it. All of these teams have, Texas, they've got a really good quarterback. That kid's good.
Yeah, I would say of the top teams, really, the 2 SEC teams are the 2 weakest quarterbacks.
Probably, yeah. They make up for it up front, though.
Yeah, J.J. McCarthy is legit. Michael Penix is legit. Bo Nix is legit. Even the Florida State quarterback, super legit. Those are all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all terrific signal callers. So, we'll see how things shake out. But I would say right now, based on what I can see with the rankings, if you're an Oregon fan, you want the Ducks to dominate and take care of business, which is good. But don't be upset if Texas or Alabama take a loss.
Well, you need help. That's really what it is. It comes down to you need help. You need some of those teams to lose.
But seriously, if the committee had to choose between one-loss conference champ Bama, one-loss conference champ Oregon, the Ducks don't want to be in that situation.
No, they don't. Because it's just going to fall on tradition. It's going to fall on history. It's going to fall on the idea that you really can't have a playoff without the SEC in it.
I've been saying it now for the last couple of weeks. I don't trust the committee. You can't depend on the committee. You've got to leave no doubt in their minds, period. Because if they have any doubt or they have a chance to choose, they're going to take the SEC. And the SEC's got power. You trying to tell me they're going to leave the SEC out with a one-loss conference champ who beat Georgia?
They're almost automatic. The winner of that conference is virtually automatic.
But Alabama right now, number 2 ranked strength of schedule. If they finish out unbeaten, they beat Auburn, they beat Georgia.
They'd be once beaten, but
that's what I'm saying. One loss, Alabama, giving Georgia their first loss.
Right.
With the number 2 strength of schedule in the country.
They're in.
The committee's not leaving them out. That's why I've been saying it. There's no guarantee for the Pac-12 other than Washington go unbeaten.
Under that scenario, you even have to worry about Georgia getting in. If they beat them in a narrow game, winning it in the last second with a field goal or something, you got Georgia pounding the table saying, we've won 2 in a row. Now You're going to leave us out?
And under normal circumstances, I would say you're right. I would worry about 2 SEC teams getting in. But under that scenario where you have multiple high-level one-loss conference champs, that's the year where Georgia would be like, sorry, we can't do it. The committee won't do it. But then again, the committee put Cincinnati in, who wasn't one of the 4 best teams in the country, but they did it because of resume. This is why I hate resume nonsense. Give me the 4 best teams. Yeah. That's what I really want. It's just hard this year because the separation is not as clear at the top. You've got the top 6 teams where it's really hard to choose which 4 are the best.
You got to weigh one conference against another, too. How strong is that conference? Because that has to do with strengths of schedule, too.
I think this is also part of the product of being associated with Larry Scott and the crappy Pac-12 for years. No one respects the conference. They think it's a joke.
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, we're going to head to Houston and talk with Adam Clanton, get the latest on C.J. Stroud, who's tearing up the league as a rookie. All right, very happy to go to the phones. This next guest is one of my favorites, a true talent, and my brother from another mother from Sports Talk 790 down in Houston. It's Adam Clanton. What's up, brother?
Chad, how are you?
Dude, it's so good to hear your voice. And when I heard this song, Naughty Girls Need Love Too, I thought that's got to be a freaking Clanton request, and Shacker said no.
No, this is just about my single life.
Well, dude, I want to start out with this because Dwight and I are blown away by the play of C.J. Stroud. Are you surprised by the level he's played at in his rookie season?
Oh, yeah. Anybody that says they are not is probably lying just because of the fact that, even a Pat Mahomes sat for a year and just take I don't know, you could throw a name out there of the last 10 years, any young stud quarterback that has come onto the scene. I just don't know that there has been the level of poise, which I know is a total buzzword that's overused with him, but it's really accurate. And that's another thing, his accuracy. Those two things are just not – that's foreign to most rookies. And maybe he'll hit a wall in the second half here. Maybe he'll come back down to earth the more film that's out there on him. But a guy like this, for a franchise like this, in a city like this, is like a godsend. And I'm not ashamed to say it. I am in love with C.J. Stroud.
Adam, you watch him, and my first thought is he must be a pretty smart kid to be able to process as well as he's doing as a rookie. I mean, I'm blown away by that. What's he like as a person? Have you had a chance to kind of get a feel for him?
Well, I have not been, one-on-one with him in a media setting yet. But what I have seen, from media scrums, from just his, normal everyday, day-to-day conversation with the media and just in front of the media, is that he's very humble, very, very likable. Like, he was like that on draft night. But, everybody kind of seems that way on draft night. Once you get into the building and you see him kind of interact, and I think the best testament, and this is what a lot of, NFL stars, and especially at that position, it's the first sign that they really are one of the good ones. Listen to how his teammates talk about him. And in the case of yesterday's game where they go into Cincinnati and they knock off the Bengals, one of the hottest teams in the NFL, listen to how the opposing defenses were talking about C.J. Stroud after the game, telling the media that basically he knew what he wanted to do coming in, which was to pass and pass deep on us. And we knew that that's what he was going to do. That was going to be his game plan. And he still came in and did it. He made those plays. And that does go back to the intelligence you were talking about. I don't know if you were able to see Dan Orlovsky do a little bit of film study today on ESPN about, the play in particular where he hit Dalton Schultz for the first down to help set up that field goal eventually, and how he was, basically looking off the safeties, but how he knew what everybody was going to do at what position. That's just – film work can do that, obviously, but that's just uncanny for a rookie to do that in his ninth game.
Hey, Adam, what about the resiliency, too? He threw that late pick, and a lot of youngsters, rookies, would crumble under the pressure, and yet he bounced back and led them down the field. I thought that spoke a lot about his game, too.
Yeah, and he mentioned that after the game, talking about the fact that he talked to head coach DeMeco Ryans, he talked to, his teammates in the huddle, and they were lifting him up, and it's just, you see the way they interact in the locker room afterward. You see how they talk about each other. He actually goes out every Friday night as a fifth wheel, if you will. Case Keenum and his wife, and then Davis Mills and I believe it's his fiance. And then C.J. Stroud is the fifth wheel, and he does that to basically keep that quarterback room in a good place. And you got to remember, Davis Mills was drafted in the third round and brought in, and I never thought he was going to be anything. But, his replacement gets drafted, and that can be, for a young guy especially in just his third year, that can be kind of rocking the boat. And so that's just C.J. Stroud's way of trying to keep a good locker room. And he's doing that as a rookie. It was his idea. So I have no doubt that Case Keenum has a big influence on him, and I do know Case Keenum a little bit personally. Great guy on and off the field. But, man, it's just you always hear about the word culture. And between C.J. Stroud and especially DeMeco Ryans coming in here, essentially being hired, both of them, the same offseason, they have really, had this franchise do a 180 in a very short time. And Chad knows better than anybody how long-suffering I am here in Houston with this franchise. It's amazing to see it.
Adam, Chad tells me you're a big fan of Ryan's, and I'd like to hear your take on the job he's doing.
Oh, he is so a guy that, I'm finally getting to the point in my career and the age I'm at where guys that, used to be players that you covered are now getting head coaching jobs in the NFL and other places. Ime Udoka just got hired by the Rockets. He used to kill, the Rockets with the Spurs so many years back in the day as a reserve. And it's kind of surreal. But, man, I was more excited than maybe anybody, and a lot of us were, that covered DeMeco because he's such a good guy. He's so easy to root for. He's a natural leader, and a lot of guys that come out of Alabama are. But, man, he really was the quarterback of a defense that – go back and look at that 2006 Texans draft. That's the year that they took Mario Williams #1 and not Vince Young or Reggie Bush, and we can debate that till the cows come home. But look at the rest of the picks in that draft in 2006, and I think DeMeco might have been a second or third rounder, but they hit on almost every single pick in that draft, and he was a big part of what really started to turn the franchise around and make it become respectable. And so for him to come back at a time where, they needed it so badly and so many horrible things that happened with the Texans on and off the field, it's really satisfying if you're a Houston fan to see him not only get the job but then be successful as he is early on. And they got a long ways to go, and there's a lot of football left, obviously, and they really need a lot of talent still. But to see where they're at relative to what the expectations were coming into 2023, it's pretty incredible.
All right, so how do you explain this turnaround? Because your favorite guy, Cal McNair, is still in charge. How do you pull it off?
Man, that's the million-dollar question, because it feels like you could get 50 different answers depending on who you talk to. I was talking to somebody actually today over in the building who's been there from the beginning, and I was like, come on, is Hannah running the team? Cal's wife, is Cal, what's the situation? What's the dynamic? And really, I think it all started when they said goodbye to Jack Easterby, who was a pastor masquerading as an executive VP, masquerading as a guy who just had his fingers in way too many situations he was underqualified for all of. Once you got that cancer out the door, and I really do use that term sincerely because it permeated the whole organization. And, that's step one, but then you have to go get the right coach. And DeMeco Ryans wasn't going to come here if Jack Easterby was still in the building. And then you have to get the right quarterback, which sounds so easy just saying it, right? But we all know what a franchise quarterback can do. There were moments where you thought the Texans might still try and trade up after they blew having the #1 pick in that win over the Colts late in the year last year. Then it was, well, are they going to trade up anyways and try to get Bryce Young? And, all the best to Bryce Young, but if the Texans had somehow passed on C.J. Stroud, it just would have been the latest example of why they're a failure as an organization, yada, yada, yada. We've all heard it. I can't get over how quickly, and you guys know this about the NFL, the parity is insane. It's unlike any other professional sports league. So if you make a series of really good decisions, it doesn't take long to turn things around. But even then, I'm still just stunned at how quickly the fortunes appear to have changed for the Texans. And then when you factor in that they're in the division that they're in, it's saying the Texans might make the playoffs this year sounded ridiculous about 6 months ago, even 6 weeks ago. And now it's very much in play, especially when you consider that they beat the Bengals yesterday.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the draft, last year's draft, but it occurs to me that as good a young team as this appears to be, there's probably a lot of draft capital sitting there ready to use, right? What do you got?
Well, the interesting thing about that is, they traded up to get Will Anderson at number 3. People kind of tend to forget that with all the love that CJ's getting right now. So their first rounder is gone, but they have Cleveland still. And ironically, as Deshaun Watson goes, so goes the fortunes of that first-round pick for the Texans. And so if anybody is already rooting against Deshaun Watson for all the obvious reasons here in Houston, that's just one more reason. And the juicy thing is those two teams play each other here in Houston later in the year. So you're literally controlling a little bit of your draft capital. But, yeah, that first rounder, Will Anderson's a guy that I actually wanted them to take with their top pick because I wasn't – and I'm just full disclosure, I wasn't a huge fan of any of these quarterbacks in this crop, and I wanted Caleb Williams. But you can't wait forever. And fortunately for the Texans, I was very wrong, and they look like they got the right guy. But, what they're able to do, and this is going to be a big part of Nick Caserio, obviously, whether or not he's still with the team and what he decides to do in the upcoming drafts. Now you're trying to surround a guy like C.J. Stroud who's on that rookie quarterback and, go back to Russell Wilson, right? If you can surround a kid that's still on his rookie deal with talent, you've got a little window there where you can really do some damage and get some big wins and hopefully go to a Super Bowl. And the Seahawks did that twice and won one of them, obviously. So strike while the iron's hot. This team still needs a ton of talent, but you got the most important piece of any NFL puzzle, and it's pretty cool to see it.
Adam, I couldn't let you go without asking you about Ime Udoka. He's a Portland kid, Portland State, went to high school here and all. I was always hoping that somehow he'd end up coaching the Trailblazers, but it looks to me like he's doing a heck of a job down there in Houston already.
What's funny about him being from Oregon is he's one of two pieces that have come into the organization that are Oregon products, so to speak. Dylan Brooks, everybody kind of laughed when the Rockets gave him $86 million or whatever it was, and he and Ime Udoka, you talk about changing the culture. It's really weird how the Rockets and the Texans are on very, very similar trajectories, paths right now in their, current state of their organization. And man, Ime Udoka he just exudes confidence and accountability and no nonsense, but yet he's got a light touch, if you will, with the media. I wanted him from day one. This is the first time in my life where there's 2 coaching hires in an offseason, and really 3 if you want to go to the Astros today, naming Joe Espada their manager. And I got every guy I wanted. All 3 of these guys are the guys, like my number one choice on the list, and they're all here, and 2 out of 3 of them are already doing a good job, seemingly, and I have no doubt that Joe Espada will. But, yeah, Ime Udoka, man, I mean, talk about a guy being available for a crazy reason, but being able to snatch him up, that's credit to the Rockets organization. And then what Fred VanVleet and Brooks have done in bringing the veteran leadership. And Jeff Green, by the way, who it kind of goes overlooked. He's an old head, if you will. But those 3 guys mixed with the young, infusion of talent, it's pretty cool to see that they're on a 6-game winning streak.
Hey, Adam, how's dad life treating you? I love seeing the pictures you put up.
Man, Carson runs that place. He absolutely runs the house. It's his world. We're just living in it. And he's kind of coming to his 5 is a very fun age. It's my favorite so far. But he's super Italian like his mom. So, like, for the first 3 years of his life, he didn't smile, and he just scowled at people like he was a teamster or a mobster or something. We didn't know. Like, she's from KC. She's, like, legit Italian, like mob roots. I love it. I kind of have to stay in line. But, yeah, he's got all the personality now. We can't get him to stop talking, and he loves going to sporting events. So Dad is very proud for sure.
That's awesome, dude. I love you so much and respect you. I appreciate you taking time, man. What a great story. The Texans on fire right now with C.J. Stroud. Adam, enjoy your week and appreciate the time, buddy.
Hey, you too. It's good talking to you. It's been too long. Let's not do that again.
Okay, you got it, buddy. There you go. Adam Clanton, Sports Talk 790 down in Houston, one of my absolute favorites. And, man, glowing reviews from Adam Godfather on both D'Amico Ryans and C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, for sure. That's what we expected. I mean, you couldn't do a much better job than those 2 guys are doing, could you?
Gosh. And he's right. The NFL, we've seen it now, right? It's a week-to-week league.
Yeah, it is.
And like you said, you make a couple of good decisions. Like the Seahawks have been in that drought for years. one good decision leads to back-to-back good drafts, and look at them now. They're revived.
Yeah.
It's that quick. Man, C.J. Stroud, you're right. He's smart. I don't care what the aptitude test said or whatever. That guy, he's processing at a high level.
And they're not doing the Wonderlic anymore. Is that right? Are they doing a different test now?
It might be different. I'm not sure on that. But the Wonderlic for years, was you'd always get Wonderlic scores leaked out or whatever about who did well and did not. I mean, Brian Greasy, I think, scored perfect on his Wonderlic test, and he sucked. A lot of good those smarts did him. He couldn't play quarterback very well.
Yeah.
Some guys just know how to play the game and some don't.
Yeah.
C.J. Stroud clearly knows what the heck's going on.
Yeah, I think instinct does play a part of that. There is some reason to believe that's part of it.
I mean, I do think you have to be smart. You got to be able to process at a high level, but it's tough. It's hard to do. I don't know how they do it.
I don't either. There's way too much to think about.
Like, seriously, you walk up to the line of scrimmage and you see the defense, 11 guys, and you try and process the front and the coverage and what the backers are doing. Who's the mic? Where your heart read's at? I'd shut down. I'd drop down in the field in the fetal and be like, I'm out, man.
Yeah, and
put me in the blue tent.
You're not only looking at the defense, but you're trying to match up what your guys are going to do against that defense.
Crazy. It's crazy. Big thanks to Adam Clanton. We love talking with him. Right now, Monday Night Football. The Broncos early on top of the Bills, 3-0 as they've been able to turn the Bills over twice so far. That makes me very happy. This is either going to be the biggest Bronco win in 8 years, or it's going to be another frustrating evening. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, you'd like to get more points out of these turnovers than what they've done.
Well, they got a field goal on one, and now they're driving on the other one. So let's see what they do. But this is seriously a big game. The Broncos' season started off like a disaster. They win tonight, and they're squarely back in the race because they got 3 winnable games coming up. This will be their 3rd straight win. And just like that, you go from the season being over to being right back in the mix. That's how quickly it changes in the NFL. It's crazy.
Outhouse to the penthouse.
Thankfully, it's not freezing balls there tonight. I was afraid, you see this game on the schedule when it first comes out, and you're like, oh, great, they're going to be stuck in hideous weather. But it's not too cold there tonight, right around 50 at kickoff, which is good. Whatever. Who cares? The Broncos have already satisfied me. 3 championships, I'm good. If they do nothing for the rest of my life, I'm good. 3 titles is nice. I can live with that.
I've seen you on days where you didn't look good. You looked like you had a problem with what they're doing.
Will they just force a turnover? What the flip's going on? What?
How could they call that a turnover? He'd already been tackled.
Touchdown. What? And see, I'm already getting annoyed. Let's go to break. I don't need this.
You got 3 championships.
He's
Look
down.
He's
the
down.
elbow's down. He's down. Yeah, it's not even a turnover, you losers. Quit giving me a heart attack. I'm just trying to get through the rest of my show. Can I do that before you guys start acting like whack jobs? Elbow down. He's got the ball. Oh, yeah, it's a fumble. Let's pick it up and carry it in the end zone like an idiot. His knee was down, too. Oh, whatever. All right, Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. High fives coming up next. iHeartRadio celebrates National Hispanic Heritage Month with specially curated playlists spotlighting Hispanic artists for their achievements and contributions to the Hispanic community and culture through their incredible music. Open your free iHeartRadio app and search Hispanic Heritage Month to listen now. All right, high five time. Michael Shacker wants to kick this one off today and send out a high five to the Rip City remix for the 2-0 start with 2 wins over the South Bay Lakers.
They're a juggernaut.
Who would you like to hand a high five out to, Godfather?
All right, my high five goes to my stepdaughter, Katie Robinson. Today is her birthday. Beautiful and talented and a new mother. Proud of you, Katie. Happy birthday.
I second that. She is beautiful.
Yeah.
No question about that. How is young mom life going for her?
She's doing very well. She's getting a lot of help from her mother. Nancy's, doing the job of a Grammy.
The Lord deserves to be praised for Grammys. They do amazing work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yep. I keep telling my kids, you don't understand how good you got it with Grammy. Make sure you take good care of her.
That's right.
It doesn't get much better than that.
You're right.
Oh, my goodness. All right. I think I'm going to hand my high five out to, I got to give it to C.J. Stroud. Stroud going into Cincinnati and taking out Joe Burrow blew me away.
Yeah, that's big time.
Because, you look at certain games, you're like, well, Cincinnati's going to win that. No doubt in my mind. And then throughout the whole game, I'm like, Houston's going to win this game. And then even late when it was in question, it was C.J. Stroud who stepped up to lead his team down the field. That just blew me away. What a clutch performance. And he's done this now on multiple occasions this year.
Yeah.
He big time.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've never seen anything like this from a rookie. Unbelievable.
Yeah. So that's cool. And Adam Clanton said, yeah, anyone that tells you that they knew that this was going to happen, they're lying.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. All right. So now we get ready for another batch of college football playoff rankings. Well, it's going to be a great weekend. The proper spacing, Oregon, Arizona State at 1, and then we get Washington and Oregon State at 4:30. And, I talked to the boss man, Rich, today, who's a Washington guy, went to UW.
Mm-hmm.
He was at the Utah game this weekend, so he's a big Dog fan. He told me that this game against Oregon State's been the one on the schedule concerning him all year. He thinks the Dogs are in trouble this weekend.
Really?
Yep. I have not talked to Softy yet to know whether or not he's concerned.
Oh, he is. I think he sent out a tweet about it. Yeah. He has a lot of respect for Jonathan Smith. He likes Jonathan, and I think he's concerned about this game.
Yeah, it's hard not to have respect for Jonathan Smith and the work he's done. Look how quickly he got that program from where it was at to where it's at now.
Rock bottom.
Rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Now to one of the best teams in the country. It's wild. And they dominated Stanford. 62 points. Not in my wildest dreams when I was talking about getting into rhythm before Washington was I thinking 62 points.
Yeah.
Poor Stanford.
I just hope they can hold on to Jonathan. Other programs are going to come calling for him.
Yes. If there's one guy that can resist the temptation to stay in Corvallis, it would be him.
Mm-hmm. Still, though, the money and not only money for him, but the money to really go after players, have a chance to be national champions. There are schools out there that can afford those opportunities.
Well, what if a team like Texas A&M offered him like $10 million a year?
How do you turn that down?
I don't know. But at some point, someone around the country at a big school is going to take notice of what he's doing at Corvallis and say, we got to take a serious look at this guy.
Yeah.
He's that good.
The problem is they don't exactly have a war chest right now to go after coaches and give them an extension or whatever. It's going to be difficult.
That's true. He already got his extension, though. He and Barnes extended. They got out in front of the Barnes thing early to make sure that he was taken care of. I think they're already sitting there. I would be surprised if Jonathan left.
Yeah, me too. But nothing these days should surprise you.
And Jonathan's the only coach I would say that about in the country where I'm saying, okay, I'm pretty secure that he's going to stay. He's the only guy. He's also the only guy that can look me in the eyes and say, I love Corvallis.
And you believe him, right?
Yeah, because anyone else that tells me that, I'm like, yeah, I don't believe you. But I believe him. Also, it was nice to see Mike Riley on the broadcast this weekend.
Oh, yeah,
that was pretty cool.
He was real good, too.
Yeah, he was terrific. He should do more games.
He should. Yeah.
He seemed happy and at peace, and you can tell he feels at home there in Corvallis.
Yeah.
And he is, a big reason why the school is where it's at today. He did good work there. I like Mike Riley.
Very good guy.
Is he still coaching?
Yeah.
Or is he done? He's still
No,
coaching.
he's still coaching. Yeah.
Of course he is, because that's what coaches do. They always coach.
Tell you, they can't quit.
No matter how much money they got in the bank.
Yeah.
And Jimbo's itching already. He just got fired, and he's going to collect $76 million. He's already probably plotting his next move.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike spends a lot of time. He's got a home down there. I think it's outside of San Antonio, where he coached. He coached that San Antonio team in that league, league
How's
that
his wife doing?
She's doing okay.
Okay, good.
It's difficult. It's a difficult situation. But
Yeah, coaches, like even Bill Belichick, is that guy really going to be happy retiring?
no, I don't think so.
My guess is you get a taste of that type of just that competitive level at the NFL. Nothing you do can replace that buzz. I don't know how you can walk away from it.
How did Jimmy Johnson do it? That's always surprised me.
I think Jimmy Johnson, while he was ultra competitive, I think he also enjoys the good life and enjoys spending his money.
Yeah.
And so when he realized he
for
can
him.
make huge money on Fox and be able to do all the things he wants to do hanging out on his boat, he thought, I'm going to do this. And good for him. He looks great.
Man. Yeah, he does.
And happy.
And he's living the great life down there in Florida.
One of my favorite moments was when they had him on the broadcast with the dude who walks in to alert you that you're now in the Hall of Fame. And they had Aikman watching him from the booth. They had the camera on him, and Aikman burst out in tears, because he was happy for him. Like, that made me happy. That was a cool moment.
Absolutely.
And Jimmy Johnson, a heck of a football coach. Jerry Jones still hasn't recovered from that maneuver. Letting that guy go.
How bad was that?
That was pretty bad. Guy wins back-to-back championships, and he's out. That is unreal. Unreal.
Wow. He's one of those guys too, Chad. You never hear a bad word about Jimmy Johnson.
No, you don't.
People love him.
I love him because, he's got ties to, Barry and Jerry Jones and that whole crew. He was at Oklahoma State, so he's got ties to my home state, which is nice. Oh, by the way, I was thinking about this too. Jim Harbaugh, in a little bit of trouble with the, the scandal at Michigan.
Yeah.
What top college football coaches who have won a lot don't have some dirt on their hands? I was trying to think about that. Like Barry Switzer didn't end well at Oklahoma. Jimmy Johnson at Miami. I mean, you look around, Urban Meyer, all the top coaches are questions. Maybe Nick Saban. Have we heard anything dirty about Sabes?
No, just the usual stuff about Alabama that's been going on since Bear Bryant coached there. The whole idea that their players were always pretty well paid.
Do you think maybe that this effort to throw Harbaugh under the bus, do you think maybe it backfired from the standpoint that his players and everyone else are a little more motivated to go out there and send a message that maybe it's not going to have the impact they want? Because they sure looked like a more motivated football team against Penn State on Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they were hoping that Michigan would lose, right?
Yeah. I think that motivation's great. I think it really helps. But when you get into the playoffs and you're going up against the likes of Georgia, you better be able to back up whatever motivation you have with some talent.
Yeah, some substance.
Yes, substance is a good word.
There's been a lot of motivated teams to get their butt kicked.
That's right. They're really psyched up.
Man, we really wanted that.
They're out there to win one for the Gipper, and they couldn't quite pull that off.
All right, coming up next, it's Courtside with Chris Burkhardt. I don't know what he's got in store for you, but I'm sure it's delicious. My man Chris Burkhardt's up next. Big thanks to Michael Shacker, to Frank Schwab from Yahoo Sports, and Adam Clanton, Sports Talk 790. Tomorrow, game day will kick off at 3, Blazers and Jazz. I'll talk to you tomorrow, my friends.
Oh, man. Chad, I'll be thinking about you tomorrow.
Obviously, big news yesterday. How did you feel about your performance tonight? Obviously, big news yesterday.
Welcome to Blazers Courtside Monday Night, hosted by Chris Burkhardt. For the latest news on the Portland Trail Blazers and around the NBA, it's Courtside Monday Night. And now, here's Chris Burkhardt.
Hey there, Rip City. Welcome into Courtside Monday. I'm your host, Chris Burkhardt. You can find me over there on the X app at Chris J. Burkhardt and have the conversation go all night long, way into the morning, and just talk Blazers all day long, because what else is there to do when it's November and the Blazers are out there taking the court? Because we do got plenty to talk about, because if you think that a season without Damian Lillard and in rebuild mode was going to be boring, I don't think you were paying attention at all. I don't think you were, because I think this young team is pretty fun right now. We're going to talk about it throughout this show, and you know what to do if you want to jump in. We're on YouTube right now. Shacker does this fancy thing where he doesn't even stop the Rip City Drive, just plows through, and I get to jump on. I love it. I'm on the YouTubes now. Got to make sure I call my mom, let her know so she can tune in, right? But you can jump in on the YouTube channel there, youtube.com/Rip City Radio, and join the conversation there. Or you can grab your phone, 503-248-0620, and get on the phone lines there and have a little chat with me through the old telephone lines, the old-fashioned way. All right, but, man, we got to talk about this Blazer team right now, because, first off, I think this was kind of the talk of the town last night going into the game, right? Blazers took on the Lakers last night, lost. It was 116-110, but they played their hearts out. Absolutely played their hearts out. And there's people who get upset with the current situation, right? Who are like, oh, this team is not very good. What are you talking about? And we need them to lose, and I don't care. Chauncey Billups did it. I don't care what Chauncey Billups did. I don't care about the win-loss record, because this year, right now, it's about development. It's about getting going in the right direction, right? And so last night, when there was no Malcolm Brogdon, there was no Anthony Simons, there was no Scoot Henderson, there was not and will not be Robert Williams for the rest of the season, the team went out there and they battled. And not only did they battled with a bunch of guys who were, up until game time, some of them were on two-way deals. They had a guy out there playing tons of minutes who, the day before was a member of the Rip City Remix before getting called up. And they also had a guy who was signed to a two-way contract that morning and showed up in Los Angeles and got a chance, and he took advantage of it, and the Blazers fell by just 6 points. And they had their chances. There was moments in that game there late where they could have got it. It just wasn't meant to be. Right? Classic. They had some of those... If a team could have rookie mistakes, right? If a team were going through those growing pains, the Blazers had some of those, okay? Like late in the game, game's still close. You lose control of the ball, kind of kick it off your knee. It goes out of bounds, and two Blazers just kind of sit there and stare at it and watch it roll out of bounds. And then Taurean Prince, smart, vet, savvy, sees that ball, runs at it for the Lakers, goes right through the Blazers that are just standing there, grabs that ball, takes it the other way. Quick two for the Lakers and a quick momentum shift. Little things like that you can't afford to have happen, but they won't happen as much if your team has been in those situations before. But again, it's a young team. Young team. Skylar Mays, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I know Blazer fan fell in love with this man last year when he came in on the 10-day deals. Played pretty well. Gave the team the minutes that they needed. But, man, he has earned every little bit of what this team is giving him. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is the fact that he is the guy I was referencing a second ago that I said started the day on a two-way contract. But due to injuries, he had to step up. He got that massive playing time in Sacramento after Malcolm Brogdon hurt his hamstring. Had a great game, almost hit a game winner. And the team rewarded him. They said, you know what? We need depth at that position. And I think we have a guy in our roster who can fill that. And so they said, hey, Skylar, you know that two-way deal? We're going to convert that to a full-time deal. We want you here for the rest of the season. We don't want to worry about you hitting your, 45-game plateau, whatever it is. We just want you here, and we want you balling. And that's what he's been doing. That's absolutely what he's been doing. And then last night he gets rewarded because, again, injuries played a factor, but he got the start. And he had a solid game. An absolutely solid game. So, these are the little things throughout the season. When the season is supposed to be full of kind of that doom and gloom, at least people think, right? Oh, man, they're going to be terrible. It's going to be nothing but rookies. What are we going to do? These are those little things that make you go, man, this is fun. This team is fun. And I think that's kind of what you want right now. Because even if you take the losses, the Blazers are now 3-6. So when it comes to that ping pong ball and getting another piece to this young core, you might be in a pretty good spot at the end of the year. But if these games are going to go down like this, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to overtime against the Kings and you're going to overtime against the Grizzlies and you're taking the Los Angeles Lakers to the brink, 116-110 in the Staples Center. I will not call it crypto.com. These are things I think you like because it makes it fun. That's the one thing I've been hearing about this team. Man, Burkhart, how about that game last night? That was fun. Heard that more than once after multiple games. Even in a loss. Oh, man, that game was fun. I think it's just really nice as a fan, at least, to know that your team has a direction and you're going in that direction. So now you can just jump on board and see where the ride takes you. And right now that ride, I think, is a pretty fun one. I think they're absolutely enjoying it, they being the Portland Trailblazers. Now, speaking of Skylar Mays, like I said, great game by him. Overall, considering everything that's been thrown his way. He gets that start, goes out there, 15 points, 12 assists. I mean, that's dishing and diamond right there. That's impressive numbers. Now, imagine if the team shot the three-pointer with just a little more proficiency, so some of those passes were turning into assists as well. That's the number you like to see. And I also think when Scoot comes back healthy, those are the type of games you're going to see from him because he's a pass-first guy. But again, great double-double performance from Skylar Mays. Now, he was the only one that impressed because, again, there was a player there that signed a two-way deal that morning. And on the pregame show, I was talking about how, we'll see, makes more sense. Probably going to spend a lot of time down there in the G League, but we'll see how that goes. I don't really see him playing much. Yeah, well, guess what? He played. He played 12 minutes. This is the first off one of the coolest names on the team, but Jamari Bouyeya. Still struggling. Is it Bouyeya? It's awesome. That's what it is. Again, a guy comes in, no time to acclimate to the team, no time to acclimate to the playbook, 0 practices. And Chauncey says, we need you because we need a ball handler out there to help this team. Go out there and do it. And he went out there and did it. 3 of 6 shooting, 3 assists, 4 rebounds. Solid game, all things considered. Again, is this a team that's going to go blow the doors off other teams right now? No. But as I said the other night, and I heard Shacker laugh in my ear, SpongeBob said it best, right? F is for friends who do stuff together. U is for you and me. N is for anywhere, anytime at all, right here in Rip City. Pretty sure that's what SpongeBob said. So I love it. I love it. Now, outside of those two, I think there was one more name that everybody had an eye on. And part of that was because of the game that they had in the G League. And that was Dwight Chad. He had an incredible performance in the the Rip City Remix inaugural game against the South Bay Lakers, where he put up 30-plus points. I think he shot 5 of 8 from deep. He had a game. Like, everyone was like, oh, my gosh, call this guy up. Look at him. Look, find minutes. His stat line that night, just so you know, was 37 points, 10 rebounds. Now, the door opened. The Blazers saw this guy, didn't think he was going to get on that roster and get minutes, but then the Robert Williams injury happened. And Robert Williams, team did announce today, had successful surgery to repair that injured knee. Hopes to heal fairly quickly, will be ready for the start of the 24-25 season. But the door opened, and the Blazers needed someone. So then the question was, oh, man, are the Blazers going to go sign someone? Are the Blazers going to go sign someone? Are they going to trade for someone? What are they going to do for big man depth? This is a question I was getting nonstop. Hey, Burkhart, what are the Blazers going to do? They need some depth at big. I mean, I'm here on YouTube. You could see my reaction. It was this. I'm going to scratch that head for a second. Like, I don't know. I mean, they got some bodies. Moses Brown. I mean, he's a big body, give you some minutes, but he's also Moses Brown. Like, again, he's a body, but he's not going to blow the doors off. But this is like a Drew Eubanks situation, right? You go get this guy, cheap deal, and you're like, oh man, opportunity's knocked. Nurk is out. Go get your money. And he did. Drew Eubanks played great for the Blazers. So Dwight Chad had a chance last night. He was going to get minutes. And let me tell you what. Not only does he get minutes, Blazer fans, not only does he look good in doing so, he looks like he might be bringing something to this Blazer lineup. If he can start to do this consistently, that the Blazers have not had talent-wise in this one particular field, that position since probably Myers-Leonard. But Myers-Leonard didn't have the skill set to get on the court constantly, okay? He was a below-average rebounder for a 7-footer. Defensively wasn't great. Had some decent athleticism in the paint offensively, but they didn't need to use it. They turned him into a three-point shooter, and he shot the ball pretty well from distance. Didn't do a lot of other things pretty well, though. But outside of that, like Drew Eubanks, not a prolific three-point shooter. Hassan Whiteside, not a prolific three-point shooter. Enes Kanter, not a prolific three-point shooter. Obviously, Robert Williams, DeAndre, and the list goes on of how many bigs they've had who haven't been great shooters. Myers was one. You got to give him that, like him or not. He was a good shooter. Enter Dwight Chad. So last night he comes in, first game at this level, first game with the Blazers, 14 minutes, 11 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, a block shot, and 3 of 8 from deep. In fact, he was tied with Matisse Thybulle for the most 3-point attempts on the team. And when 3 of 8 is a number that stands out to you, most people would be like, 3 of 8. I mean, again, we lived through the Dame and CJ McCollum eras, right? We have Anthony Simons on this roster, who is an incredible 3-point shooter in his own right. Like, 3 of 8. I mean, that's not great. Yeah, keep in mind this dude's 7 feet tall. He is a big man. He is a center. And that number will continue to improve. He has got the jumper, and he's got it locked in. And that's one of those things, again, you love to see. So that's this little added wrinkle that all of a sudden the Blazers have with him in the lineup. Because, again, DeAndre Ayton's not stretching the floor like that. Robert Williams isn't stretching the floor like that. Now, Jeremy Grant does, but granted, Jeremy Grant's a forward. He's not your center. Having your center be able to do that opens up a whole lot of doors. And he's nice and athletic. He moves well. In the YouTube chat, after the game on the 5th quarter, which is available on iHeartRadio, River City Radio 620, right here after every single Blazer game, and now streaming on YouTube. Someone mentioned that Reith kind of looked like a Zebo light out there. And that one kind of made me laugh because I was like, you know what? Like, that's not a bad comp. Because that's what I think of. Like Zach Randolph, guys. You remember that? Big body, but he had a great jump shot. Dude could shoot that thing. I was like, okay, I see what you're laying down. I mean, I'm not going to go with the full, yep, this guy's the second coming of Zebo, because Zebo ended up having a pretty darn good career. But, yeah, I was like, I like the comp. I like what we're laying down here. I just love it. Again, not trying to be cheesed mode over here. And I'm not getting out over the skis. I understand what this team is going to be and what they are now. But, man, you cannot tell me that watching this team right now is not F-U-N fun. I'm loving it. And to think about that, I just talked about this game last night. And the 3 main guys I mentioned, Bouyeya, Reith, Mays. Didn't even talk about Shaden Sharp. Didn't talk about DeAndre Ayton, Jeremy Grant, Shaden Sharp. Now, Shaden Sharp's he's gonna get some tired legs here pretty soon. He played 42 minutes in that one. But another solid performance from him, 19 points. Jeremy Grant, 23 points, solid. DeAndre Ayton, 12 and 7. Would like a little bit more from him, that's for sure. Tumani Kamara only had 2 points, but he's not there to score. He's there to do all the other stuff. But when you can go through these games, and the guys you're talking about are those guys who started this whole thing as end of the benchers, 2-way deals, boy howdy. Is it nice to see? All right, now Skylar Mays is one that I've talked plenty about, and when you have performances like he does, and you get called up, but not called up, but you get rewarded and have your contract converted that day, and then you get your first start in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, all the lights, all the stars. You get the post-game interviews, right? The reporters come looking for you. So let's take a listen, and we'll head into the locker room after the game there at Staples Center. That's right, not calling it crypto, where Brooke Olzendam had a chance to catch up with Skylar Mays.
How do you feel about your performance tonight?
I feel like I played okay, but, I want to win more than anything. So that's kind of where my head is.
Playing with the starting unit, what do you like about that group?
Well, we're older. Playing with the vets, I think I'm just getting more comfortable. Obviously, we have a lot of scoring, and, it's my job to get those guys good looks. And I think we're, turning the corner. Just want to, at the end of the day, come out with a win.
You mentioned, of course, you would have preferred to win. What do you think went wrong, I suppose, or what could you have improved upon in the fourth quarter as the team to get this win?
I think games like that, and most games in the NBA, it comes down to executing down the stretch, because it's always going to be a 2 or 3 possession game. So, they had us there, but we showed a lot of fight. We just got to learn how to finish games, and it's early. We got a lot of time to make up for it.
How much of a headache was Anthony Davis with LeBron out? He stepped up big time for them.
Yeah, he's one of the 75 best players to ever play. He did what he does, but he's on the other team, man. I'm not going to give you too much.
Skylar, you obviously played last year in the G League. Jabari, G League guy, Duwop is getting his first NBA run. Kind of, what does it say about just the amount of talent that's out there that you got a lot of guys that?
Oh yeah, there's not a lack of talent in the NBA. And JB's a hell of a player. I had a battle with him last year, so I remember him really well. I'm happy that he came in and did his job, and we're going to expect a lot from him.
All right, there you have it. There was Skylar Mays after the game, and shout out to producer Michael Shacker back in the home studio there. Don't have a graphic. I haven't made him one yet, because I made a graphic for these YouTube streams, right? So if you're watching, it pops up on the screen, and it'll say, voice of Chauncey Billups, voice of Scoot Henderson, voice of Shaden Sharp. I didn't anticipate this being a thing, so there's not one in the canister that says voice of Skylar Mays. right? I got to get on that. So instead, he just played a slideshow of the dogs that, all the people here at the studio own. And like I commented on the YouTube channel, see, I get what you did there. He's trying to tell you that this team has that dog in him. It's well played there, Michael Shacker. All right, we do have a little bit of time. We do have to get out of here early tonight. We're going to end this show in about 5 or 6 minutes, get you guys over to the Kraken game. But before we do, let's head back out to Staples Center to hear what Coach Billups had to say after that loss last night.
What do you take away from this one?
Man, we played. I thought we played a good game. Really did. We got a lot of great efforts from a lot of guys, man. Complete game from everybody. Everybody contributed. Everybody that got in there played well. Close game. It was a close game. It's just, that they shoot 37 free throws. We shoot 9. That's just tough. It's just tough. It is. We go 7 for 8 in the first quarter. Shoot 1 for the rest of the game. That was on a defensive 3 second. That's tough. That's tough.
What did you think of Skylar?
Mm-hmm. Sky did good. Sky did a good job. I thought he controlled the game. He controlled the tempo. He got guys shots. Really good game. Only 1 turnover, 12 assists. That's big time.
The free throw disparity, do you think that was them being more aggressive inside or maybe not getting some calls?
I think both teams were aggressive, to be honest with you. It's one of the things we do. We attack the paint, all the time. So I got nothing to say or anything about their aggressiveness, but I know we were aggressive too.
Whenever you play a team, an opponent, they're missing their superstar, is that a missed opportunity?
I think any time you got a close game in the fourth quarter, 1 possession game with a few minutes left, it doesn't matter who misses or makes the game. It's a missed opportunity.
Coach, quite a few new guys out there tonight. So could you talk about both Duwop today? Your thoughts on how he played, and same with Boudier.
Yeah. I thought Watt played a good game. He's a pick and pop 5. So we'll use him that way. Most of the time, I drew up plays for him in the timeout to get the pops because I know they kind of play in a drop. And we did a good job of finding him. He fought like crazy. He had a block shot. He did well. He did well. He did what he does. And I thought Jamari came in and gave us some really good minutes in that first half. He really did. We were kind of struggling. He got the ball going. He got it moving side to side. He, made a shot. He did a good job too. His presence was felt out there.
Was someone like Davis tonight just an example of, a superstar just being able to do things that maybe your guys can't really answer for?
Yeah. AD is obviously, he's one of the best players in our game. And sometimes guys like that will get going, and we kind of change defenses on him. We trapped him and doubled him some. I thought their penetration from their guards, it really hurt us a lot of times because he was able to get it to AD in the pocket, or, but it was just he was the best player on the floor, and he played well.
All right, there was Coach Billups. We got to get that man a censor button. He likes to drop those bombs. Now, before we leave, got to use the magic of television to look at the camera. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, you see it and wave. Because I hear that my children are at home watching me on the TV and trying to wave at me and get my attention through the TV box. Well, you can do it. You can do it there on the YouTube. Thanks to Mom and technology, you got my attention, kids. So the show's almost over, which means I'm going to get my car and I'm going to head home. So you should probably start making sure all your chores are done, doing a little bit of cleaning, right? Get that stuff done. Talking to you, Peyton and Brooklyn. Tegan, you can do some chores too. All right? There you go. That's my the little kid shout out. Hopefully.